Are you sitting comfortably? Then we'll begin.
'Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends. There's still time. The AFTN Soccer Show, broadcasting on CITR Radio 101.9 FM from the unceded Musqueam Territory at the University of beautiful British Columbia. I'm Michael McCall.
And I'm Zachary Adam Eisenhower.
And never has that introduction been more true, because it's kind of felt that the podcasts have never ended this week, Zach. This is our fourth podcast in 8 days that is going to be coming out. 2 of the main show, 2 of the extra ones. The 3 that's already come out, I think I worked it out, it's 5.5 hours of podcasts.
I was going to say, so nine hours.
I mean, even I feel that's too much for folk to listen to. My wife doesn't want to listen to me for that much in a week. But there's been a lot for us to cover.
There's a lot going on.
Yeah. Some stuff on the pitch. It was nice. I got to get to my first game of 2026.
Stuff on the pitch.
We'll talk about the game in part 4. But it was nice to see you, hang out in the press box with you out in Willoughby.
It was great.
And just see the first live action of the year. Good crowd. Yeah, I really enjoyed that. Obviously, we're going to be talking about a lot of the stuff off the pitch. And a lot of it is Whitecaps stuff off the pitch. A little bit on it as well, as we'll talk about the stadium stuff that's still rumbling on as well. Feature interview, though, to kind of break all that up, is I have a chat and a catch-up with Ranko Veselinovic to see how his rehab from his ACL injury is going. So that's in part 3. So that's a lot of fun. You don't want to miss that. And yeah, we'll talk about a few other things in this intro. Someone messaged going, I think it was High on Caps, our friend of the show, who said, I can't handle the Whitecaps leaving. What am I going to do without my 4-hour podcast on the Whitecaps, where you spend the first hour talking about how your week's been? And that is true.
Classic.
I had one person saying he really enjoyed the last podcast, but it was too long. And it was. I went to 3.5 hours. That wasn't the plan. We've got a 3-hour slot on CITR. I don't know if I have explained this to people, which is why the podcast is 3 hours. Now, we can be under, and we do put ads that go in the one that goes up on radio and on the CITR website. So sometimes, because we don't have a show after us on the station, if it goes long, we could technically go 4 or 5 hours, and I don't think they would care, because they're just playing normal Ghost Mix music after that. Mm-hmm. But I try and keep it to 3. I know that is a lot, and people do listen to it in stages. But other folk have said, as long as you can make it, it's great. We listen to it over the week or in various drives. So we'll find a happy medium. I don't think this episode will go over 3 hours.
Yeah, no. I mean, I can see ways it could, but yes. Yeah, I don't think it will.
No, we have a rundown. We don't know where that will take us, but yeah, we'll see how it goes.
It's like a guideline.
Yeah. I mean, it's a busy week for sport in general. The Winter Olympics is underway. I don't know. Are you a big Winter Olympics fan? Do you watch much of it?
I was growing up, a lot, tons. So far, I have not watched anything this year at all.
I've watched the Scottish curling team because they will always be Scotland, not Team GB. To me, they're
Okay.
Scotland. I still hope for the day before I die that Scotland will be in Olympics as Scotland and not under the GB flag. But they've done superb in the mixed curling and they are into the semis, just lost one game so far. So I've watched that, watched a little bit of skiing. Um, saw the Lindsay Vaughan crash today, which was horrible, but
Hmm.
maybe not unexpected if you're racing with a torn ACL, but yeah, that was horrible for her. Hopefully, that isn't how she goes out. I am
Because she
waiting.
was back in hoping to medal, right? Like she
Yeah,
was.
but even after tearing her ACL, in the practice, she was the third fastest, which is
Oh,
insane. So I'm wearing something special for tonight's show.
let me see. What do you got there? Oh yeah.
It's my Vancouver 2010 volunteer t-shirt. I have two of them, which I realized I haven't worn since 2010, so
You
they're in
vol
very
you,
good condition.
you volunteered twice?
I was going to do the Paralympics and then I ended up not. So I just did the main Olympics. I had a great time volunteering. If anyone, I think it's closed now, but if anyone's volunteering at the World Cup this summer, actually get in touch because I'd love to chat to you about that.
I
And
know
then we'll chat after it as well
I,
and see how you found that whole experience.
I know Gail had gone through that. I can't remember
I think
if
Arna has as well, actually.
oh, okay. Yeah, we'll have to get one of them on to talk about it.
Yeah, I like my volunteer experience at the Olympics was great. I was because it was local. They put me up at the I think I spoke about this on the show before, up at the Coliseum. So it was the speed skating and the figure skating. And oh, it was tremendous. You get to watch a little bit of it as well. And obviously you could be positioned inside, outside. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. So that I guess is some sport for us to watch in the next little bit.
There are
Did you
people
see
who
any?
there are people who go like to World Cups just to volunteer
Oh yeah, yeah,
wherever around the world and yeah. In Doha, you can imagine there was quite a few like influx of people. It's such a small population and yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of an interesting thing, but
Did you see any of this superb owl today?
no. No. Actually, no. I only know what happened because someone messaged me.
Well, I'm a 49ers fan and I hate the Seahawks and I can't cheer for the Patriots. Sorry, Har. I know
But
it's Har's team.
I
So
lo-
I did not care a jot what happened today. Well,
I
I wanted both teams to lose, but that wasn't going to happen.
I can't remember if we talked about this on the show or just you and I talked about it, but your good fellow 49ers fan, Eric Hasley, has
Oh,
friends
yes,
where
you
he's
told
living
me.
where he's living. And in earlier rounds, he has a friend who's a Seattle fan, so he asked him to come over and watch the game. And so Eric went over with a homemade what did it say? It had the I think it had the logo or I think it was morphed, but he calls them the Seattle what he calls them with the sea chickens.
Sea chickens, you said, yeah. Yeah, so I'm sure that captured everyone's imagination today. I went for a lovely walk because it was a beautiful day.
Mm.
So I decided to take Annie up to Hastings Park, where I've mentioned we go for walks regularly, walk around the nature reserve there. But I was like, I'm going to go and check out the racecourse, which was open for the
Mm.
casino, really busy, obviously, for the Super Bowl. So I went, took some pictures there, and just kind of pictured what a new stadium for the Whitecaps might look like. Took some pictures of the amphitheatre as well, which still looks like it has a lot of work to do to get ready for June, I have to say,
I can
but
imagine.
taking shape. And talking of that, in the intro of last week's show, we mentioned the World Cup Fan Fest. So we've got two updates to bring you.
Oh, nice.
Don't know if you heard them both or not. So it looks like it is now going to be free for watching the games at the amphitheatre at the PNE.
Really?
The reason for that being Ken Sim has realised that he can't have viewing parties at BC Place because FIFA are not allowing
Oh,
it.
yeah. Well,
So they passed a motion that they would do it, and then came out that same day and said, "Except we can't because FIFA's not letting us."
yeah,
Which
that's
anyone with half a brain would have been able to tell him that. And they mentioned the what we talked about security aspect of it all.
yeah.
So now they're looking at trying to make the whole fan fest free. So that's a good positive to start the show off. And there will be some positives that we talk about in the course of the show, some negatives as well. But let's start on a high, a sugar high, as we bring you this episode's Hot Chocolate Boy.
Hot chocolate boy, he's never had one. Hot chocolate bad one, hot chocolate boy.
Yes, we're back with the penultimate Hot Chocolate Boy of 2026, and only one visit that we managed this week. It's just been that kind of crazy week with all the Whitecaps stuff that only really got out to one place so far, but two offerings to talk about from that one place. And the place in question is Onda and Gelato by James. They're based in Olympic Village at Salt Street, right beside the London Drugs and just down from the Save-On there, if you're familiar with the area. Now, they're open 7:30 to 10 p.m. daily, and I don't know if their hot chocolate offerings are different in the evening or if they've just had to tweak it over the course of the festival. But we were really wanting to go and experience this, but it was slightly different, the two things that we had, to how they're advertised in the festival programme. So I had number 172 in the 16th Annual Hot Chocolate Festival Guide, Grand Flame, described as a dark and dangerously delicious Italian cocoa from world-famous chocolatier Pernigotti from northwest Italy, with refreshing orange notes. And you can have it with an alcohol version or a non-alcohol version. The alcohol version has Grand Marnier, and they say that they're going to set it on fire, which some of the early videos that we saw, that did seem to be what they were doing. Didn't do that with mine, but to be honest, I didn't need that done. They just had the Grand Marnier in a little pouring jug, so I poured that in. Absolutely delicious. They said that they had a touch of Vancouver's own world-famous Maestro James chocolate gelato, and the drink is topped with orange foam, a slice of candied orange, and a spritz of Italian Sicilian orange oil essence. And it's meant to be served with house-made beignet filled with 70% dark chocolate orange mousse cream. But when I was there, they were actually out. They'd run out of the beignet on Friday. So mine was served with two mini cannoli filled with the orange mousse cream. And I've got to say, I much prefer cannoli anyway to beignets. And the whole drink was amazing. They use Avalon milk in the drink, so it's really rich. It was very creamy, had a beautiful orange taste to it. The Grand Marnier addition just really set it off. Real whipped cream on top. And like I say, I didn't need it to be set on fire. I know that's the artistic thing. Now, it's advertised at a higher price. So I don't know if because of those tweaks that is why it was cheaper. But it was $10.75 for me. So it's actually one of the cheaper offerings at the festival. And I still, treat-wise, would say that the s'mores that I had last week at Union Market was the best treat on its own. But for the best actual combo of drink and treat, this Grand Flame for me is my winner this year so far. And it's going to take a lot to beat that in the last week of the festival. Hot chocolate, absolutely perfect temperature. Everything about it, the serving, how it tasted, cannot recommend this one enough. You've got a week to get out and try this. So if you are in the area, head along to Onda and have that. Now, my wife had number 173 in the guide, Go Nuts, described as a warm and nutty combination of Texas pecans and Italian chocolate. Designed around an award-winning gelato Texas pecan with Italian soul, and they add some pecan paste for depth and melted rich dark chocolate. The rim of the glass, and it's served in a clear glass, is Amarena sour cherry sauce with candied pecans on top of their chantilly cream. And they finish it with a scoop of gelato, which my wife didn't seem to have a gelato. And one of the videos for this had some smoking done with that. But again, this didn't happen on Friday either. And again, I don't know if that is why it was cheaper. It was also $10.75. So it's accompanied by a warm, hot chocolate focaccia with a slathering of Nutella. And it says crushed hazelnuts, but it didn't have any hazelnuts on this either. So I don't know if they've just run out of stuff or if they've tweaked stuff as the festival's gone along. Now, my wife really enjoyed this, but I'm not a big cherry fan, which is why I didn't want to go for this to begin with. But she enjoyed it. She would recommend it. But I think she had a sip of mine as well, and she preferred mine. So for me, head along to Onda, Grand Flame. Whether it's on flame or not, it doesn't really matter. It's absolutely delicious. And that is this week's Hot Chocolate Boy.
Hot chocolate boy, he's never had one. Hot chocolate bad one. Hot chocolate boy.
So highly recommend Onda in Olympic Village. And Onda, Zach, actually has a Whitecaps connection, kinda. The cafe that Onda now is previously was a coffee shop cafe called Gusto. And that's where I met Vanny and had a coffee after he was let go by the Whitecaps. So first time I'd been in it since sitting there with Vanny. But
That's funny. He's the only Whitecaps coach that since, well, Bob Lilly was kind of retroactive, but since Tater, and I guess Bob to a different degree, that I haven't sit down with after they left and like had a coffee or had a meal and kind of talked football, talk the past, talk the future.
well,
But
you've got a
I'm glad
chance
you did.
to
I'm glad you did. Yeah. Well, now
outline Easter
Depends.
Sunday.
That's
or
right.
Easter Saturday, you're
And-
playing your game and Halifax come to town to kick off the CPL season.
That will be a fun post match.
I really would like them to move it forward an hour.
Yeah.
If they can.
Yeah.
I'm assuming One Soccer and TV things has had an impact in that, but there's no way I can get to that, stay for Vanny's
No.
post game and make it to BC Place in time. Well,
No,
it would be
yeah.
it would be tight. I probably could, but it'd be too tight and not an enjoyable drive to worry that I was going to make it
No.
or not.
I'm hoping to join you the day for both of them, and it's not possible to do fully both of them for sure.
No, but he'll be back another time. And yeah, maybe I'll find out with the training on the Friday if they are indeed going to train here, which they've announced their pre-season plans and they're not coming to BC this year. They are going to Marbella for 2 weeks.
There you go.
So there.
It's the place to be.
Yeah, but we'll talk more CPL VFC in part 4. We're going to talk Whitecaps to kick the show off, as we usually do. The Whitecaps news of the week. Pretty quiet week, Zach. Not a lot to chat about. I guess we'll start with on the pitch stuff
Right.
before we get to the hell that the last 7 days has been. I tweeted out on Tuesday, what a fucking week. What do you mean it's only Tuesday? Because it felt by Tuesday that we'd already gone through 7 days. Well, let's look on the pitch. So the Whitecaps pre-season has wrapped up in terms of competitive games that we know that they're playing. Pre-season itself hasn't wrapped up. They've still got more to go as they fly back to here and then off to Costa Rica. But it wrapped up in Marbella with a pair of losses on Sunday. Their midweek game was called off due to the weather and a waterlogged pitch, which you feel is going to kind of derail some of the plans a little bit. They have had some intra-squad games, but obviously it's never as good as getting some competition. It's just been terrible, the weather there for them.
Yeah.
But the 2 games on Sunday, the first one, it was a young, mostly fringe squad going up against Sparta Prague B. They lost 2-0. Watch those highlights on YouTube. It's a team that maybe where the starters are very much close to the starters that kind of took to the field for the second game, taking on Swedish side IF Brommapojkarna, going down to a 2-1 defeat there. They trailed them 2-0 early before an own goal just before half-time. A Thomas Muller shot deflected high and over the keeper into the net, rounded off the scoring. Now, from watching the highlights, and I mean, you can't take a lot from pre-season in general, but I've got some concerns.
Yeah.
I have to say, defensively, which was what their sound footing was last year, some of the goals that they gave up were just letting players get free shots off in the box, not reacting well to cutbacks, and not looking the solid defensive force that we saw last year. And that is concerning, although I do admit it's very, very early to have any of that concern.
Yeah. You're not wrong. And even like some of their finishing just was
Well,
not.
yeah, like they were creating chances, which is good,
Yeah.
but the goals aren't exactly flowing
No.
right now, which is
Well,
maybe a little bit of a concern as well.
I think it the 2-1 game against the Swedes where the goal was from an own goal from a
Yeah,
Thomas Muller
that was
cross
the
from
on goal
right.
one.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That was you'll need those kind of goals in a season, but yeah, I mean, just even a couple of in the highlights, a couple of the attempts that you would expect Brian White would bag just weren't there.
Yeah. And I mean, it's getting that sharpness. The first game being played in the weather kind of took everything away from that. We spoke in the last show, you can't take a lot from that. Then the third game getting called off, it's not ideal. And I wonder what they might try and get kind of lined up. The team fly home from Spain on Tuesday, but obviously with the distance and the change in flights, they're not going to arrive in Vancouver until Wednesday. They then have to have a mandatory 2 days off, and then they're flying out on Saturday to Costa Rica to finish their preseason prep there before taking on Cartines on Wednesday, February the 18th. Then they fly back to Vancouver for their MLS opener at home to RSL on February 21st. So there's not a lot of time left to get ready
No.
and up to speed. And you're playing a team in Cartines that they were flying, but they've come off the rails a little bit because you'd mentioned how well they had been doing. They started off January with 3 straight wins. Then they had a draw.
Yeah.
Then they lost 2, but they won their most recent game today, Sunday the 8th, a 1-0 win over Perez Zeledon.
Yeah, a shot from outside the box. Their keeper also made a save from a penalty in that match.
So they're joint top of the table against Herediano right now in the Clausura. So they've maybe steadied the ship. It's going to be a tough test, and we saw last year when they went to Saprissa it's going to be tough. We'll speak a bit more about that in the next show.
Yeah.
They've had some players that's been getting minutes, so great to see Eddie Aracampo got his first preseason game today. Emmanuel Sabi still hasn't played preseason. He's still missing from playing. I think he's still getting up to speed. I've seen him in the videos, but he'd missed some games for personal reasons, but they're not really clarifying exactly what that is. Sheikh Sabali, who we talked about in the last show, is now official.
Yeah.
The Senegalese forward, who I wrongly said, because Transfer Market had not been updated, that he hadn't featured at AFCON. They've now updated it, and he did make 2 sub-appearances for fleeting minutes, but he was part of the Senegal squad that won that, so he's an AFCON winner. So he's arrived now, still getting up to speed, so didn't feature in the final friendlies on Sunday. Azael Jackson did, though. He arrived midweek, played the full 90 against Sparta Prague B, looked lively, looks just like from the distance with the hair, it just looks like Jaden Nelson.
Yeah.
It was so funny. It's like, wow, Jaden's come back. Good performances in a way. They look lively. So, I mean, he was involved. So I guess that's what we kind of want to see. For Sheikh Sabali, by the way, here's my shout out to the supporters. They need, although it's spelled Sheikh, but it's pronounced Chic. But they need to get a chant for him to Casey and the Sunshine Band, Shake Your Booty. Sheikh Sabali. Sheikh Sabali, Sheikh Sabali. I mean, it's made for that, surely. We will not be doing an interview with him anytime soon. He only speaks French. How's your French? Can you do an interview?
Je parle un petit peu de français, mais pas bon.
Yeah, oui. Not yeah, that was German. Oui.
Français la langue de l'amour, n'est-ce pas?
I don't know what you said. I hope it wasn't offensive. If it is, I apologise for anyone that took offence from Zach's comments there.
I said French is the language of love, isn't it?
Well, perfect for Valentine's Day coming up. As is one of the songs coming up later in the show, but yeah, that's still to come. So, I mean, how prepared are they from these friendlies? I mean, it's hard to tell. We won't really know until they take to the pitch in Cartago. My starting 11 for that game right now, I think, is Taka, obviously. I think Ocampo at right back, Blackman and Priso in the middle. And then I think they'll go with Tate Johnson for the Champions Cup game, with Matty Laborde being saved for the RSL game.
Oh, he's the one dude I want to mention. I think it was in the 2-0 loss against Sparta Prague B, where he had the one moment of encouraging offensive output where he tried the bicycle kick.
It was audacious.
Yeah, it was. We'll talk
Wasn't
more.
David Norman-esque.
I was going to say we'll talk more bicycle kicks later, but no, it was. It just reminded me of, as I was watching it, I was just like, oh yeah, this is one of the reasons why he's loved so much and why he's valued so much, and why I know you like.
I just
very
love
high.
the guy.
Yeah, but you think they'll hold him back?
I think because the games are coming thick and fast, Tate plays one, Matty plays one. Now, they might switch it and Matty ends up playing in the Champions Cup. Matty was playing centre-back today against Sparta Prague. Yeah. So I think they might go with Tate. And then Kubis and Berhalter as your midfield pivot in the Champions Cup. Maybe also against RSL. Muller is the 10, White up front. But it's the wing positions. I'm not sure where they're going to go with that. Now, Cabrera, I think, is a shoo-in for one of them. But does Jackson get a start? He was playing in December over in France, so he's going to be relatively fit. Sabi won't probably be up to speed for the right wing back by that game, you'd imagine. But maybe. Do they go with one of the young lads coming in? I don't know. That is my big kind of mystery just now.
Yeah.
But I mean, we've spoken about the season needs to get off to a flyer with all these home games. 9 of the first 10, Champions Cup, tough outing against the Costa Rican side, and then Seattle potentially in the next round as well. So I don't know. We can't read maybe too much into it just now, but we'll find out soon. It's crazy to think we're just over a week now till the season gets underway.
Yeah, that does feel crazy. And it feels even crazier because of all the soft field stuff that we'll get to later.
Well, I mean, let's move on to that now. I guess we kind of have to. Yeah, is the big talking point of the week. I'm sure everybody would really love it right now if that is all that we had to talk about, and if that is what was dominating the column inches, the podcast chat, news articles, news reports, but we all know it's not. In the last show, we delved very heavily into Axel Schuster's press conference on the Friday, chatted about what looked to be a dire situation for the Whitecaps on the stadium front for 2026 and beyond at BC Place. A letter had gone out to season ticket holders explaining that games couldn't be played at BC Place this year because of various World Cup commitments, other concert commitments, stuff like that. And we weren't really sure how the next week was going to play out. I'm not sure any of us, though, really expected it to play out the way it did this past week. It's been a crazy week. And we're going to get into that now in the next little bit of the podcast. And we'll start by looking at the Whitecaps' current situation for the 2026 season. We'll talk about 2027 onwards and the shortfall that the Whitecaps say that they need to make up this year and beyond and how they might get there. It's been another confusing week, really, in terms of what the hell has been happening around BC Place. So after everything, how it played out on Friday, January 30th, it seems that there was movement and there was a further meeting between the parties on the Monday, But that only all kind of came out later in the week. So on Tuesday, Ravi Kalon, Whitecaps season ticket holder, we should point out as well, for about a decade, I think is what he said. He's the BC government's Minister of Jobs and Economic Growth. And he confirmed that BC Place, which as we know and delved into last week in depth, is operated by PavCo, a Crown corporation, will now give the Whitecaps back all the profits that they make from Whitecaps games at the stadium. And the figure that was put out there was that would be between $1 million and $1.5 million, but most folk are kind of focusing on the $1.5 million aspect of that. Now, Kalon said that they will work with the Whitecaps and also trying to get them more money from food and beverage sales on game days, and potentially some in-stadium advertising money, parking revenue, stuff like that. We'll delve into that in a sec. Which, according to figures then that Kalon mentioned in an interview he did with Donny and Daly on their show on Friday, could amount to a grand total. The government, PavCo, are going to be giving the Whitecaps an extra $2.7 million in their coffers this year. Now, the BC Lions, who obviously have not been as vocal in all of this as the Whitecaps, will also be offered the same deal, out of fairness, and rightly so, they should be. Everything seemed good with that, and it was quite a buoyant fan base on Tuesday when this news came out. What wasn't mentioned, though, in the initial kind of media rounds that the government and Kalon was doing, was that it's just a one-year deal that is on the table for now, but that in itself is not the end of the world, because you would imagine that they can renegotiate, see how things work out. And then, unfortunately, we're kind of back to this situation in 12 months' time, where they then have to sort out a new deal for 2027. But there was still joy among the fan base. Media were reporting it in a good light. But the Whitecaps were keen to point out that although it was a great gesture from the BC government and PavCo, especially in challenging economic times, as we touched on last show, they wanted to get across the message that it wasn't enough to solve the bigger issues that they have with revenue in general. So Axel Schuster then put out a quote via the club to kind of temper that excitement a little bit, and to get across the fact that this is just a part of the kind of money that they are needing. And if anyone was thinking that this was going to solve everything right now until the new stadium was going to get built, that they were wrong in that assumption. Now, the statement or quote that came out from Axel was clumsy, to say the least. It was badly worded. First of all, it didn't say that the Whitecaps had accepted the deal. And then later, it transpired that they'd actually done that on the Friday, January 30th. I can kind of confirm that the deal was done that Friday afternoon. Axel Schuster phoned PavCo on his way to the airport to fly to Marbella, said that the Whitecaps were going to be accepting the deal. Parties met on Monday, lawyers met, lawyers were thrashing out the framework and the wording of it. Now, that wasn't said in the government's media rounds when they said that they'd offered this. It wasn't mentioned in Schuster's statement, and all it needed was another sentence in there to avoid the absolute shit show that then played out because of it. So in the statement, it read, "Unfortunately, our gap between being top 7 in attendance and last in revenue is so significant that this effort alone isn't the game changer that is needed for long-term sustainability." So immediately, everyone thought that they'd said no to the deal and that the club were in real danger of being relocated. All the goodwill that the club had built up on the Friday before, from Schuster's transparency in a letter to season ticket holders, his transparency to lay it all out in the media availability, it just all seemed to disappear in a flash. Even long-time fans were turning on the club because it came across that they were being ungrateful, they wanted more, they were accused of being greedy, they were accused of the plan all along is they want to relocate and that they were trying to get government money to build this new stadium for them and they didn't want to put their own hands in their pocket. On the other side, the heat on the government, which had really been raised over the weekend, Emily's getting emailed from people and just general anger towards PavCo and the government in general, that then seemed to flip around and folk were like, well, what's the government meant to do? They've just said that they've offered the best deal because the government were saying that they had offered a net zero offer to the Whitecaps. Basically, they would take nothing from having the Whitecaps at BC Place. Now, although the statement didn't say it, the Whitecaps never said no to that net zero offer from the government. And as mentioned, they accepted it on the Friday afternoon. The problem has been that that wasn't communicated by either side. Comments have apparently been lost in communication, was what Axel then said on Thursday. And I think both parties were kind of coming across as kind of being hostile to each other, where it wasn't actually the case of that. Now, the net zero offer from the government to not take their share of any revenue is an excellent deal. But in reality, and with the losses made by the Caps, it's just a very small drop in the ocean. It isn't the game-changing money that Axel said he needed to see. And it isn't on its own going to make the team a more attractive proposition for any potential buyers or investors. The fallout from the statement that Schuster made on Tuesday led to him having to do media availability on Thursday from Spain just to try and clarify things and what the Whitecaps' standpoint was in all of this. And on the whole, it led to a little bit more confusion. We'll get into some of that. But one of the things that Axel said on Thursday was, it is only a little step to a solution. And to be clear, I think it needs 25 or 30 more of these little steps, or it needs a few big steps to really get to safe water and to say, okay, now this club is more in the area of financial stability and viability. And we'll dig into what those little steps could look like in a bit. So it's all a mess right now, Zach. I mean, at least we know 2026 is sorted in one sense. But, I mean, going back to Axel's statement on Tuesday, because I haven't heard your thoughts on it, but I will die on this sword. It just needed one more sentence saying that they'd accepted the deal and then explaining that there's other aspects that they need more, that the deal in itself isn't enough. That one sentence, I think, stops the shit show that then followed.
Yeah. This was Axel's media availability you're talking about, right?
Well, just the statement that he did on Tuesday.
I'm forgetting which day is which now. The
But
statement.
he put the statement out on Tuesday, late on Tuesday afternoon, saying, thank you for the offer, but this is just, we need a lot more than this.
And then was the media availability on Thursday?
On the Thursday, yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, I think this is a very difficult situation. And there are so many moving parts to this and so many different elements to this that on the one hand, I feel for Axel. I feel for the Whitecaps. I feel for the comms team in this. Because there's so much that there's so much going on. And I don't think that they've in any way tried to misrepresent anything or to create confusion or misunderstanding. I think, unfortunately, some of that obviously did happen. And yeah, as you said, between Tuesday and Thursday, it was very frustrating for fans and for media and for.
Well, I mean, the mood definitely turned.
Yeah, and it didn't. And again, no intent. There was no intention from Axel and the Whitecaps to create or cause that or whatever. And so that's, what led into to Thursday.
I mean, I think they've put their hands up and said, yeah,
Yes.
that it could have
Yes.
been better.
Oh, and on Thursday, at the beginning of the press conference, Axel did. That's the first thing he did. He's like,
Yeah.
"Hey, yeah, I can't remember the words he used, but it was like, yeah, there's some kind of misunderstandings, or I think I need to say some things to be clear or whatever." And he did clear up a number of things.
Yeah, although at one point in the early going, because then we were chatting about this in our WhatsApp group, he was like, I was very confused how the media reported what he'd said the previous Friday. And I was like, but we reported what you said.
Yeah,
And then how things then went from his statement. He was thinking there was like folk had misconstrued it, and they had. But even on the call, folk weren't understanding what he was saying. And I know he says he doesn't want to negotiate in public, but they ended up partly doing that.
yeah. And again, I think this is really difficult because there are so many different elements to it all, and they're trying to cover so many bases at once that I think sometimes it feels like, yeah, being on those calls, like, yeah, you wanted a little bit more or a little bit, maybe even just worded the imagery a little bit different, right? Like, I know you and I haven't talked about how, like, the whole 25 to 30 steps things, in one sense, okay, but in other, maybe for more concrete thinkers, that's like a little bit difficult or hard to fully comprehend.
Sounds so many, and we'll kind of touch on that a
Yeah.
bit more in the next little bit when we talk about this. I mean, the offer from the government, it's 1 to 1.5 million, but everyone's kind of looking at the 1.5 million. And I've said in the preamble to this that it's like a drop in the ocean for what they're needing in the grand scheme of things to get where they want to be financially in the revenue table. But that's on the one hand, which is it's true. It is a drop in the ocean to what is ultimately needed, but it's a big chunk of change. I mean, 1.5 million pays for a couple of players' salaries.
Yeah.
And depending on how many players you bring in, a few players' salaries.
Yeah.
Then when Ravi Kalon spoke to Donny and Daly on Friday, that 1.5 figure had then kind of gone up. It could be worth 2.7 million to the Whitecaps. So how do you go from that 1.5 to 2.7? And it can only really come from things like price increases for the fans, concessions, tickets, parking, some increased advertising opportunities in and around the stadium. And we'll talk naming rights in the next bit. But I think concessions, if they went up a little bit, folk would live with that. Parking is highly expensive as it is, and folk are more encouraged to get transit anyway. But tickets, now this was something I had hoped to raise on the call on Thursday, but we had our two questions, and it's something the next time we speak to Axel, we'll definitely bring it up to him. But fans are even saying, we'd be happy if the ticket prices went up. Some fans, you give me that look.
No,
Some
I mean,
fans, no. But
well, I think
are cheap tickets compared to some other teams in MLS.
Well, if
and
there's
some other teams in the local market.
if there's a binary option for Whitecaps fans, and the options are no Whitecaps in Vancouver or you pay more for tickets, yeah, I would say whatever, at least 75%. I would say, yeah, okay, we're good with that.
Because if you look, if every ticket went up a $5,
Mm-hmm.
and you've got 20,000 fans in the stadium, it's like there's 100,000 gross before you take everything off it, extra coming in the coffers for every game.
Mm-hmm.
Now, from a Whitecaps point of view, because folk have been like, well, why haven't they raised the prices? It's because they know what the situation's been like with the team. It's been mediocre at best and poor in some seasons. There's been the other off-field stuff that the club's gone through, the women's scandal that came through, COVID hitting. You've got the Rise now. You've got CPL. You've got Golden Eyes hockey. You've always got the Canucks. You've always got the Lions. You've also got the Canadians. We've spoken there's a finite amount of money, And in an economic crunch, which everyone's in just now, folk make decisions. So the Whitecaps have wanted to stay an attractive proposition, particularly for families.
Yeah.
And that's what they now need to weigh up. If you raise the prices and you get some extra income from those that are coming, but you lose a chunk of the fan base at the same time, has it been worth lifting it? Because then those fans aren't spending money in the stadium and other stuff.
Yep.
So I don't envy them in that regard in trying to make that decision, I've got to say.
That's a difficult part of this that, again, in this conversation, it might feel an easy solution for some. But yeah, how does that impact things in the more like the medium long term?
There's so many more questions as well. That, like the next time we sit down, Max, so we'll obviously talk a bit more to him about this. Everyone's now wanting to sit down with him further after what he said on Thursday as well, just to get more clarification. So 2026 looks, in some regard, sorted, but with the need of still getting revenue from other ways. So what do the Whitecaps need? How do they get there? What are these little steps? We'll talk about that next, after we bring you the first of two songs this episode from our Artist of the Month.
Hey, I am Axel Schuster, and I'm listening to the AFTN Soccer Show.
Lean out your window, golden hair. I heard you singing in the midnight air. My book is closed, I read no more. Watching the fire dance on the floor. I've left my book, I've left my room, for I heard you singing through singing and singing a merry air. Lean out of the window, golden hair.
Welcome back to the AFTN Soccer Show on CITR Radio 101.9 FM. And kicking off this part, it's the first of two songs this episode from our Artist of the Month for February, the wonderful and tortured genius that was Syd Barrett, focusing on his solo work. Although if you're enjoying that, if you've never heard early Pink Floyd, where so much of the songs were written by Syd Barrett, sung by Syd Barrett, certainly check those out. But we're focusing on his solo stuff, and we kicked off this part with a song called Golden Hair, track 8 on his debut album, which was released in 1970, The Madcap Laughs. It's music by Syd Barrett, but words by Irish novelist and poet James Joyce. Joyce released a book of poetry in May 1907 called Chamber Music, 36 poems in the book. The fifth poem was Lean Out of the Window, Golden Hair, and that is the poem in full that Syd Barrett put to music. It was one of the earliest solo songs that Syd kind of put together when he was starting to experiment putting poems to music, mostly in some drug-fueled episodes in 1966. This was one of the first ones that he did. I think James Joyce, probably more known for his novels like the famous Ulysses, maybe than his poems, but the book Chamber Music, 36 love poems in that book. And with Valentine's Day coming up, if you wanted to give a kind of unique gift to the loved one in your life, James Joyce's Chamber Music wouldn't go amiss. 36 love poems. If you want to do a double whammy, try and find a CD that came out in 2008. It's a double CD on Fire Records where all 36 of the poems in the book are actually put to music, a la Syd Barrett style. Don't say we don't do anything for you on this show to help out your love life. We'll be back with another Syd Barrett track to kick off the next part, but that is your cultural part of the podcast for this episode. Normal service will resume now as we get back to the football chat, back to the Whitecaps chat, and back talking Whitecaps stadium issues and the Whitecaps' future. So, on Thursday's media availability, Schuster said that the aim is to get the Whitecaps up to the average in the league in terms of revenue. They're currently bottom of the revenue part of that, and I'll come to that in a sec, even though they were the third strongest team in MLS in terms of revenue growth year upon year. The boom in attendances, the success on the pitch, the Thomas Muller effect, it's all seen revenue grow by 30%. But when you're starting from a low figure, that isn't enough to suddenly catapult the club up to that mid-table financial security that they are looking for. Now, Schuster said the club have tried everything to improve their current financial situation, but the reason the team has gone public about their plight right now is that they just can't see the growth or development needed in their current situation and are needing others in the community to step up. Who those people are, we'll come to in a sec. So Axel said, to the average in this league, we are short 40 million Canadian in revenues. That's also coming from how great this league is growing, how well markets are developing, how well things are going for the league, and how much more traction this league gains. But we have been a big player in this league last year. We played in the MLS Cup final, we played in the Champions Cup final, and unfortunately, we are left behind. Our wagon is not moving, and even after that kind of year, if we look into next year, it hasn't had any impact really, he said. So, the availability had the usual Whitecaps soccer media on it, and a lot of news people, understandably, because of the to and fro on Tuesday between the government and the club. And unfortunately, putting that 40 million figure out there then just seemed to confuse a lot of people on the call. I tried to explain it, and that seemed to just cause a little bit more confusion to some. He tried to explain it by saying that the 40 million is the difference between them, the Whitecaps being the second best team in the league, and a team in the middle of the table. So whether it's a specific mid-table team in terms of positioning, or the average revenue from a team in the middle of the financial table, various people that heard the call, and if you're an extra podcast subscriber, you'll have had the full 37-minute call on the last extra podcast that we sent out on Saturday. But it kind of confused people because they're not the same thing. But by this point, so much time had been spent explaining about the 40 million to begin with that thankfully no one pushed the issue any further, and we kind of moved on to the other talking points. And anyone that's heard the call, I think Karen Larson from CBC, you could just feel how exasperated she was trying to get her head round what was being said here. And I think she kind of captured the mood of a few folks that's heard the call from the feedback that we've had on social media. Now, the problem is losses are not made clear and public in MLS. They're private businesses, so they don't need to be. When clubs are kind of getting government money, public money, the waters then are a little bit muddied, because you can't expect to get government money and then not talk about profit and losses. So if we look at Forbes's 2025 MLS profitability rankings table, the Whitecaps came 26th out of 29 teams overall. San Diego weren't included in it because it was their expansion year. So the Whitecaps had a 10 million loss in operating income, according to that report. Only 12 teams actually show a profit from the 29. The Whitecaps are bottom in revenue, as Axel has said, on 40 million. Colorado is on 42 million, and this is all in US dollars, by the way. And Montreal are on 45 million. They're the only teams that's close to the Whitecaps in revenue. The rest are all 50, 60, 70, 80. And of course, leading the way are two big teams of Inter Miami with 180 million US dollar revenue, LAFC 150 million. Atlanta at 105 and LA Galaxy, the other teams that break the 100 mark as well. Other examples, Portland have 68 million in revenue, and the other Cascadia side, Seattle, 83 million in revenue. Toronto, 70 million. Now, Portland and Seattle record small profits in their operating income, 1 million and 2 million respectively. Toronto do lose more than the Whitecaps, and they're 28th with a 12 million deficit. But of course, we all know about their wages, which will play a part into that. So there's a lot of different factors that go into the revenue brought in, the operating income spent. But I mean, when you look at that, Axel's comments clearly meant the median, because bringing in 40 million in American, if you add, he said 40 million Canadian, that's about an extra 30 million American. That would be 70 million. And from looking at all the teams, that would be slap bang in the middle. So that is what he meant. And there is a big difference. And they are bringing in less, and they're not spending as much. And fans over the years, rightly, have pointed the fingers at the Whitecaps ownership and said, you're not doing what other teams are doing. You're not bringing in big players, high salaries. And that has most definitely changed in recent years. They've approached things differently. But that is why they are where they are.
Yeah. When we talk about all these revenues and we talk about losses and all that kind of stuff, I think one of the things that you and I have talked about over the years is, I used to maybe call it like a shell game with MLS clubs, right?
I've called it a pyramid scheme.
Well, that's another part of it. But the shell game you play is all of these owners are a part of two things. They're a part of MLS and they're part of Soccer United Marketing, right? So Soccer United Marketing is the arm or branch or whatever that collects the expansion fees, that I think is involved in the broadcast rights and all these kind
sponsorship deals, all the
big things.
all the stuff.
It's almost like where the bucket that receives most of the money is, and then the clubs themselves are where all the money comes out of. But I think that bucket is only fed by like ticket sales and all that kind of stuff.
Each club can decide as well where that money goes.
Yeah.
And so, Axel was very keen to point out this money is not going into the Whitecaps owners' pockets.
No, yeah. One of the things that would be nice to know, which I could totally understand if ownership or even Axel himself don't want to discuss or don't feel it's fair to discuss, is if the club is operating at losses like they say they are, even though they don't want to talk about the amounts, again, that's understandable. And even though some amounts look like they're out there based on some reporting.
And that's SOME.
Yeah. Classic. But it would be helpful to this overall conversation to understand what they're actually, what the sum numbers are. And again, MLS has, I can't recall ever being fully transparent about that, other than people knowing, oh, this expansion fee was that, or this expansion fee was this, or whatever. But the overall, I don't know if there's anyone who has, done a deep dive and actually calculated what it's at or what it should be at, or what this kind of is. Because I think even if on the one hand, on the operating side, yes, they've lost millions each year over the years, which would be also understandable. You can't have a full conversation about that without knowing, like, okay, when this team came in the league, they made, $20 million. And when this club came in, they made $50 million. And when this club came in, they made $2 million. Like, it feels like an unfair or unbalanced or incomplete conversation. And again, I totally get that the Whitecaps might not be willing to have a conversation publicly. They might not be able to, by the rules of some or whatever, or like MLS, to have those conversations publicly. But
Yeah.
it is a giant piece of the puzzle that is missing.
Well, it's like San Diego's come in and it was a record-breaking $500 million expansion fee
Yeah.
that then gets spread out. And obviously, ones that's been in longer will get more.
We don't know that
Imagine.
algorithm for that. Yeah.
I'm imagining it is working like a pyramid scheme.
But that to me, that's like, it makes it incomplete, because then when you come back to these conversations and you say, okay, yeah, there are the average middle of the table club in terms of revenues generated is 40 million Canadian ahead of you, and you're dead last, and yet in the performance on the pitch, you're second, or in the final and whatever. It feels unfair. It feels like you'll never be able to compete. All these kind of negative things, right?
Yeah.
And that is valid. And it does make it harder to have investors or to have a buyer or to all those kind of things. But it feels like if everyone knew, oh, okay, well, each, over the existence of MLS or each year, the ownership received this amount of money. And now I know the simple answer, and we don't know this. The simple answer might be like, look, and I don't think this is the case, but it could be that the profits of some do not outweigh the losses of the operating cost.
Yeah.
That could also be the fact, but that would also be
that could also be taken into the revenue. And obviously, we're just going with Forbes's reports because the actual figures aren't out there, and we don't know the breakdown of it. And I'm sure they're speculating in some way. But if you look at the Whitecaps have lost 10 million for the year before, that's not as much to make up. And then if you're making 2.7 from the stadium that we talked about in the last little bit, that's a quarter of that.
That seems like a big step out.
It's a big step. But if they're wanting to then make an extra 40 million, then they're making a big profit then. You've also got to remember that there's probably not going to be many more. I think we might get 2 more expansion fees. And then after that, the expansion money stops. And that's when some owners you feel are maybe going to want to kind of bail.
Cash in, yeah.
And we've seen it with Kansas City, which 700 million.
And I was reading things, and it was maybe recent reading, but is that for like full 100% control of the club? I thought it was partial even.
Oh, I thought it was for
or was it?
It
was a part, or was it? Or maybe it was a partial.
Majority stake. You are correct.
It's not even the whole thing. And it was
71% to a guy that already owned 9%, so he's now got 80%.
Yeah, that's okay. That makes sense. But again, it's not an apples to apples comparison, right? Because as you and I have been talking about, they have their own stadium, they have their own training grounds at the stadium, and all this stuff going on there. The real estate of that is has probably considerable value. All that kind of stuff.
Because folk that hasn't helped the Whitecaps situation, because people that either are just casual fans or people that don't even really like soccer or the Whitecaps and are just not wanting the Whitecaps to get money from government or whatever, are looking at that figure and thinking, well, why can't the Whitecaps get that if they sell it? And it's because they don't own the stadium. They're not in a good way to make revenue, as we're talking about. And it's a whole different situation. Also, interestingly, no one really knew that Kansas City were up for sale. And then it got announced and it kind of caught everyone by surprise. So folk might be like, well, why did the Whitecaps come out and say now that they're for sale? Do not be surprised if the Whitecaps had been on the market for a year or so before they came out and there was just no interest, which is then why they went public to try and get buyers coming in.
That would make sense.
A little thing that Axel kind of dropped in on Thursday as well, and I'd asked him about it when we talked, and it was something I was against. The more that things come out, the more things are said. Multi-club ownership is screaming at me here as that might be a way forward with the Whitecaps.
So okay, so what do you mean? They come under someone else's wing, or they buy?
Yeah.
Maybe
just as part, because obviously Carefoot Mallet might hold some as well, and then they'll come in and buy a stake.
Yeah.
And maybe a minority, maybe a majority. But I think things are pointing kind of towards that a little bit.
But again, in the MLS setup, that's only that amount of the 49% that's not owned by MLS, right?
Yeah, I would.
Something like that? Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Which then makes it even more complicated. Now, with everything that had happened, because the government's involved, there was obviously a lot of news media, not your normal sports media, that were on that call on Thursday. And a couple of them, they were getting kind of hung up in stuff that I've read since about what the club is worth, kind of tying into what you're talking about there, what the owners bought it for. Now, their investment has increased more than tenfold.
Yeah.
If they sell it for 400, 450, they bought it for, I think, 35. But, and I'll put this in my terms, like I've got a really good record collection, vinyl, CDs.
Yeah,
I've got some really rare records in there.
You absolutely
They are worth some money. But right now, it doesn't help my financial situation. It only helps my financial situation if I sell those records.
Yeah.
And even if I want to sell them, it relies on somebody wanting to pay what the record's worth.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's basically where the Whitecaps are just now. Yeah, they're sitting on this big increase in their initial investment, but only if someone actually wants to buy it. And Axel's saying there isn't anyone that wants to buy it right now because it's an unfavourable investment opportunity.
Exactly. And more specifically, Axel's saying it is the fact that we don't create more revenue from owning our own stadium is one of the biggest reasons why no one's willing to buy or invest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you're looking at expenditure, which again, we don't see the full breakdown of everything, you've got to look at the costs for the Whitecaps have skyrocketed since COVID.
Oh, yeah.
Now, first of all, if we look at COVID, they had to relocate to Portland. They had to relocate to Salt Lake City. In that time, Greg Carefoot and the ownership did not pay one person off during COVID. Nobody was laid off. The ownership paid for players' family, for staff's family to travel with them if they could, to be in Portland and Salt Lake City with them. Accommodation, flying them down so that they're all together, so that you're not away in these times. And I think that's something that gets overlooked. And I'm not just like kissing the owner's arses here, but we'll say that. They've made a lot of mistakes over the years. And I do feel the way the club's been run in a big chunk of the early part was not setting the club up for success. And that's partly why they are in the mess that they are in now.
Yeah.
But coming out of COVID, you've now got the team charter everywhere. That doesn't come cheap. Increase in salaries. We've brought in way better players. Not even like Thomas Muller-esque players and Ryan Gauld, but other players in the squad they've improved. The success on the pitch leads to bonuses. So it's more money going out. And then you've just got general running costs. Electricity costs are higher for everyone. Food's higher for everyone. You've got a weakened Canadian dollar. It's just a tsunami of expenses that's now made the club look and go, well, these costs are going up, but our revenue streams are not coming in. Axel was keen to say that he never thinks of an end scenario. I was going to ask this, but someone thankfully asked it before, so I didn't have to waste a question on it. But I do wonder, Axel says there's not a deadline to this, but you've got to think in discussions with Garber, with MLS, and Axel might just not want to be saying this or can't say this. There's got to be pressure put on them of, right, you have to find a solution or we need to move the team. There's got to be some deadline put on it by the league. Maybe not now, but if not now, soonish or summertime of we need to have something sorted by this date or this club is not financially viable.
Yeah, those are obviously conversations that they would have as a part of all this. And yeah, in one sense, like you mentioned this earlier, like fans can breathe knowing that 2026 is going to move forward, schedule's out, and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's been out for a while, but that's all moving forward and whatever. But yeah, there behind the scenes there has to be some kind of, whether they're deadlines or time frames, that these things need to be worked out, resolved, come to at least a certain place. And you got to think like a part of this literally could just be a part of this is got to also include, hey, if you are going to build your own stadium, like, a shovel has to be in the ground by this time because we know it's going to take 2 or 3 years or whatever to get done. Not like the pop-up stadiums we were talking about last week.
No.
In 100
I still, like, having gone up and looked at the site today as well, as I said in the intro, it's like you look at the vastness of it, you could easily do work to get a temporary stadium there while you build a new one. I still don't see how that would not be feasible, aside from where's the money going to come from to pay for it? Because solutions need to be found to increase revenue. There's no doubt about that. And Axel said, and this was the thing that I was like, they wouldn't have gone public with this in the first place if they didn't feel the team, to use Axel's words, was in a lot of trouble. And that's a phrase you don't want to hear as a supporter.
No, yeah. But again, when we talked about this last week, as scary as that sounds, at least they're trying to put this out there now, as opposed to like middle of the season or something.
Yeah. It's just unfortunate though as well, because after Axel's statement on Tuesday, there was a lot of doom and gloom in the fan base.
Yeah.
And I saw a lot of people in messages to me and just their own general messages out there and messages to other people. And they were all saying the same thing. This has sucked their enthusiasm for the season completely out of them. And I get that. It's done it with me as well. It's hard to think about that when you've got this hanging over you.
Yeah.
And once the season starts, everyone will get more into it, and hopefully results on the pitch will help towards that. But yeah, I mean, this has been a hellish week to try and cover the club. We've brought out 2 extra podcasts. We're talking about it again here. I'm expecting this will be the last we talk about it, though, for a little bit. I think it will dip out the headlines now. Maybe that's more wishful thinking on my part. I don't know. But if we look at what solutions are, these little steps that Axel's talking about, the 25 to 30 little steps or a couple of big steps to get this extra revenue. And let's not put numbers necessarily on what each one will bring, but where does the money come from? Axel has said it's not going to be from the government. He's not looking for a government handout. He's not looking for them to bail them out.
Which, again, is a good clarification, because a lot of people in this were like, what, they want the government money? And...
Yeah, everyone was like, oh, they just want the government to give them money for this new stadium. And right now, the Whitecaps said it's not. It's coming. The Whitecaps will find funding for the stadium.
And people who don't have the historic knowledge need to understand that in this process of Greg Kerfoot investing in and showing deep value and appreciation for both men and women's football, the dude wanted to build his own stadium on his own land, and he got blocked.
Yeah. Right? And my understanding is he's tried twice since then, and it's gone nowhere.
So it's not, it's when it comes to these large expenditure like a stadium, this is different than like these stories we hear from around North America where owners or leagues just go to municipalities wherever they can, because that municipality, that county, that province, that state, whatever, will just give them a pile of money to build a stadium that they will then own and be the largest recipient of the revenues to. Greg Kerfoot, to his credit, has been someone who said, I want to build a stadium for my club that I will build. And I don't think he's just like, hey, give me some free money so I can pay less for a stadium. And I think that
he's tried to do land swaps in the past.
He's tried to give up larger quantities and or more valuable land. I forget the actual numbers or figures, like 3-1 or whatever, to try and make the whole thing work. And people still shut him down and said no. And I think I can't remember all that. We don't rehash everything, but I think that partly had to do with, I think, some people wanting BC Place to have primary meaningful tenants. But you can't look at the Whitecaps and say, oh, they're just looking for free government money in this, when it comes to stadium, especially.
Because a lot of like the casual fans or Canucks fans or Lions fans that's been seeing this have been quite negative towards the Whitecaps, primarily on the period of Tuesday evening and Wednesday. And I mean, one of them was like, oh, the Whitecaps, they just don't put any money in. They want everything for free. They don't invest. And yeah, the investment in the first 10, 12 years of the time in MLS maybe could and should have been better. I talked about all the things that the club's done from COVID and beyond. And we've talked about this regularly in the show. And I know to a lot of people listening to this, it's like just already preaching to the converted, to use your kind of vernacular. But Kerfoot has invested in the Whitecaps Academy, $1 million a year plus in the Whitecaps Academy for many years, for a couple of decades now. You've produced talent. It's maybe not had the sell-on that they were looking for, but they've produced talent. They've got a pathway in soccer. They are important to the BC ecosystem of football. Mm-hmm. He's invested in the women's game. He had the women's team here. He's invested in the Canadian women's national team that without that would not have reached the heights that they had reached because of the investment that he put into it. He's put money into Jesse Marsh with the other MLS owners to have a good head coach to try and get Canada to win the World Cup, which might be unrealistic, but to at least do well in the World Cup. So he has put his hand in his pocket.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Just maybe not on the MLS side of things to the extent that people have wanted. Now, when it comes to looking for where the money's coming from, Axel said, we need more support from the corporate business in British Columbia. We need more support from the big companies in British Columbia and Vancouver. The World Cup is coming and everyone celebrates that, but we are a huge important asset to this community. We are a community club. You know how much we do in the communities, how much we do with kids in our communities, how many kids are playing and how many kids are playing for free with our badge. Many pitches we build in underserved communities. It's time to stand up also from the business community and say this is something good for British Columbia, and that is another stream of revenue that they can get in. And he's spot on with that, because it's a tricky situation because it's a Canucks mad city. Hockey is always going to be the number one sport in Canada for the foreseeable future, if not forever. Right now, the Whitecaps are a more successful side than the Canucks. They get more fans to their games than the Canucks. But the television eyeballs are on the Canucks more than the Whitecaps. The news and written press, for what's left of it, is more on the Canucks than it is on the Whitecaps. So the corporate sponsors, the corporate companies are giving their money to the Canucks because they want to be associated with that. Yeah. The Whitecaps need to not worry about if they piss the Canucks off, because the Canucks don't give a fuck about the Whitecaps. It kind of comes across at times, sometimes not even wishing them good luck in competitions or whatever, until they maybe get shamed into doing it. It's like, go on the offensive and say, look, we're a successful winning team. The Canucks aren't. Would you rather have your business associated with winners or losers, which is what the Canucks are right now? I don't know if they would have that bold a strategy, But as an outsider coming into the province, that's where I would go.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong in that. I think it would be. I mean, it's a cultural thing, right? Mike, a part of this is just like it's the
Yeah.
ice hockey thing, right? It would be interesting to see if this year, and maybe Axel's already alluding to this that he knows it's not or whatever, but if this year they will see much of an increase due to the performance, due to the presence of Thomas Muller, and these kinds of.
Well, I mean, we had a kind of chat during the week about German companies.
Mhm.
There's like Audi sponsored the league. Would they want to maybe put money into the Whitecaps or BC Place? Which, I mean, well, before I get into that, the other big aspect of corporate investments, taking on suites, in-game, stadium, axide, advertising and sponsorship. They've redone the suites for the World Cup, so there's more opportunities there.
Mhm.
And Axel alluding to the World Cup. Now, people and businesses obviously are going to want to put money into the World Cup if they can, because it's a global audience more than kind of national and local. But then we come to the naming rights situation. And that is something that PavCo said that they were now open to. Apparently, if I read this right, they've been able to do naming rights for the stadium since 2019, but PavCo have chosen not to, for whatever reason. Now, Telus were mentioned in the past that they would have naming rights for the stadium, but the Whitecaps were sponsored by Bell, and there was I don't know how accurate it was, but there was a feeling that conflict of interest made the deal fall through.
Yeah.
Now, we had the Bell pitch at BC Place Stadium, and the Lions have Save-On pitch at BC Place Stadium for their games. So the Whitecaps haven't had a pitch sponsor either for a couple of years. And that was something, it's another question I'd like to ask Axel. Why has that been the case? Why have they not pushed for a pitch sponsor? Maybe they have and they just couldn't get the money. But the naming rights for the stadium, there's different ways that they can do it. They can either have the name of the stadium as a whole for everyone. So, for argument's sake, let's just say it was the AFTN BC Place Stadium.
That's a nice ring to it.
It does. Would that then be the Whitecaps play at AFTN BC Place Stadium? The Lions play at AFTN BC Place Stadium. And then concerts are held at AFTN BC Place Stadium. That is the best solution you would feel. That would get the most money. But then that money's going to get divvied up. PavCo and the government will take a share. Whitecaps will get a share. Lions would get a share. And I've seen people put out, they'll get 10 to 20 million for stadium naming rights. I think the people that are thinking that are way off the mark here.
Yeah.
If a company was willing to do that, do you not think PavCo would have signed that up by now? I think it's more likely that the offers that's come in for naming rights, PavCo's felt it's not really worth doing it for that amount and giving up the stadium.
Yeah.
So even best case scenario, I think you got 10 million from it. The Whitecaps aren't seeing 10 million. You might get a third of that depending how the deal gets cut up or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you might get less than that. So you're not talking big double-digit game-changing amounts here that I think people are thinking that they're going to get from that. But then going back to, like I mentioned, Audi BC Place Stadium would kind of make sense because they sponsored the league. But the German car industry is not in a good state just now, so I don't know that they would want to splash that kind of money. What's that company? Tyson Krupp? German company. They're wanting to get a U-boats deal with the Canadian government, or submarine deal, I guess, is the...
Oh, yeah, you were talking about that.
Yeah, what you would call it nowadays. So you've got a German on the team, a German company looking to get this deal, work together with that. Thomas Muller's so marketable that
He is.
you'd imagine that they would want to have people like queuing up to get involved now because of having his presence here and what he's done for the city. So I would hope that they can do a lot more in this regard this year as well. And can I just say, I'm not saying that they've not tried.
Yes.
And I would not want to be in the corporate sponsorship team at the club this season because the pressure on these guys to deliver is going to be absolutely huge.
Yeah.
It's tough for them.
It's gonna be massive. But I think what we know about these people is that like yeah, I think every part of the club was thrilled at the addition of Thomas Muller because they all knew it would provide more opportunities, whether it was selling tickets or selling advertising. So
Yeah.
since
It would help if they had, and this wasn't the Whitecaps' fault, if they'd had enough fucking jerseys to fill the demand for
yeah.
Thomas Muller last year, which they couldn't get.
I saw someone talking about that. If they just had enough of those, it would make quite a bit of money.
Yeah. So if they can do that with a new jersey that's coming out on Wednesday,
Yeah,
then if they've got proper amounts in
that's
and they
very
can
true.
get the home ones as well, that will really help.
Yes.
Then you wonder, and we don't find out these things, how much money do they make off a jersey?
Yeah, because in the past, I'm pretty sure we've been told it's not nearly what you think it would be.
Yeah, because we know what the markup on the jersey is by what jerseys cost over in Europe.
Yeah.
So someone's making a pretty penny from the jerseys. But just to wrap this up, and then hopefully we don't have to talk about it for a little bit. If we look to the future, what does 2027 and beyond then look like? What does it need to look like for the Whitecaps? I said on the extra podcast that we put out on Saturday, we brought you the full 37-minute Axel Schuster press conference in that. So some folk will have seen a chunk of it. One Soccer put up 28 minutes. I don't know what happened to the other 9, but it's not gone up on other Whitecap social media. Little clips have been shown out on the news or whatever. So I brought you the full thing in that. If you're not a subscriber, $30 a month. No, I keep saying that. $30 a year, $3 a month, or $10 gold membership, $5 silver membership. Get all the details on aftn.ca. You're supporting the site, you're helping cover our costs, and you get all this extra stuff that we bring you over the year as well. But I asked in that, if you could sit down with Axel just now, what would be your burning questions? So for me, I'm just going to write this down because I'll forget. How much money do they make from kits? Will they have enough? But Landfish70 said his burning question after this week is, and this is a very valid one.
Yeah.
Assuming a new stadium is a viable option in the next 3 years, are the current ownership group prepared to or able to hang in there under the current framework without taking on new partners or selling outright? Or do they need to get this revenue and income and investors in now, and they can't hang on till this new stadium is built? Does the new stadium solve everything? I don't know that it does. The other question which never got to ask Axel, so we'll have tickets, we'll have kits, is that idea that we talked about last week that Garber floated, which is taking on control of BC Place. Because Ravi Kahlon and the BC government have kind of made it clear that their preferred situation is the Whitecaps don't get a new stadium and they stay at BC Place in the long term.
Yeah.
Is that feasible in any way, shape, or form? And you kind of have to feel from what's been said this week, no.
No. Yeah.
I don't know how running it would be either, to be honest, because they're taking on extra costs.
The only scenario it feels like it's meaningful for them to have the stadium would be to, well, no, sorry, let me say this. I don't think them owning BC Place and operating it similar to how it's done now makes sense for them, right? Because ultimately for their football business, if they owned it for their football business, you'd want grass, which would then limit what else you could do in there.
Yeah.
If you were owning it to just maximize it like it is now, you would want the surface in now. You'd want them to do some of the things they're doing, or you'd want to invest crazy money to try and have technologies. Although with the buildings that have gone up around it, I don't think any of these would help, where you can move the pitch around or out or whatever. But ultimately, the only advantage to them owning BC Place, I think, would be selling it or tearing it down and selling the land.
Yeah.
And letting developers, put more buildings and then building an actual something that would be meaningful for them. That's why ultimately, yeah, the best thing for them is to have their own stadium where it's grass and they control all the revenues and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And if they share it with the Lions, if they share it with the Rise, whatever, that's future discussions. As I said was up there today. Even Caitlin, when I was taking some photos, and Caitlin's like, "Oh, it's a beautiful view from up here." I was like, "Yeah," and you just look out and you're like, "That could be our future view." So we've spoken a lot about this over the last 8 days. God, it feels so much longer than 8 days. I'm hoping there's no more this week on this. If there's any more, it's just, we've got all these new sponsors that's come in and it's all been great after this and everything's looking rosy. Don't think it's going to happen that quick. Let us know any more thoughts that you've got. Let's start focusing though and looking ahead to the season. We'll have our season preview in the next show. Maybe I will finally get this round table done. But that's it for the Stadium Chat for now. We will bring you though our feature interview in the next part. And it's a good news story as he's fighting his way back to fitness. He's taking part in drills, not full contact yet, but we're going to sit down with Ranko Veselinovic to chat about his rehab and recovery. And we'll be back with that after the second song this episode from our Artist of the Month.
Hi, I'm Ranko Veselinovic and you're listening to AFTN Soccer Show.
Long gone, long, long gone. She was gone, gone. The bigger they come, the larger her hand. Till no one understand why for so long she'd been gone. And I stood very still by the windowsill, and I wondered for those I love still. I cried in my mind where I stand behind the beauty of those in her eyes. She was long gone, long, long gone. She was gone, gone. The bigger they come, the larger her hand, till no one understands why for so long she'd been gone. And I borrowed a page from a leopard's cage, and I prowled in the evening sun's blaze. Her head lifted high to the light in the sky, the opening dawn on her face.
Welcome back to the AFTN Soccer Show on CITR Radio 101.9 FM. And kicking off this part, it's the second of our songs from our Artist of the Month for this episode, Syd Barrett. And that is track 9 on his debut album Madcap Laughs, a song released over a number of different recording sessions in 1969, appeared on that 1970 album, Long Gone. It's a haunting song, quite a raw song, produced by his former Pink Floyd bandmates and friends David Gilmour and Roger Waters. And when you kind of listen to it through headphones in particular, you can hear the vocal overlays, and it's a very interesting recording. And it's one that at the time did cause a lot of problems for them to kind of get recorded. But the end result was one of my favourite solo songs from him. And we'll be back with more from Syd Barrett in the next episode of this show. So let's get back to the football chat now. Back talking Whitecaps, and it's time for this episode's feature interview. And it's with a Whitecap that is trying hard to get himself ready to go for the season and to get back on the pitch after a horrible injury derailed the end of his 2025 campaign, Ranko Veselinovic. Ranko, just one of so many injuries that hit the Whitecaps last season. Never experienced anything like it, although my team in Scotland, East Fife, are going through something quite similar just now, as I've kind of mentioned in previous shows, just not anywhere near the depth that the Whitecaps managed to have and have players step up last year. Defensively, in particular, especially if you're a centre-back, it was a horrendous year and season for injuries. Not one centre-back went through the season without some kind of mishap befalling them. And in a number of ways, one of the most impactful injuries for the Whitecaps last year came on Saturday, July 19th, down on that crappy pitch at Snapdragon Stadium in San Diego. First half of that game between the Caps and San Diego saw the club captain for the game and for what had been most of the season, Ranko Veselinovic, suffering an ACL tear in his left knee, twisted it in the grass, went down, looked in a lot of pain immediately, and although it looked bad at the time, you kind of feared the worst, hoped for the best, but just 3 days later, on Tuesday, the club confirmed that it was a tear and he was going to miss the rest of the season and the start of the 2026 campaign. Agonising for Ranko. You saw how upset he was. Ranko and Tristan Blackman had formed such a solid defensive partnership. For me, we all know Tristan got Defender of the Year, very well deserved, but Ranko was also in the conversation for that. And I mean, if the two of them had been in the final conversation, it might have been what happened with Philadelphia, and that you get a split vote and then neither of them win it. But for Ranko, with how well the season had been going, how well he had been doing as well, and was just having a phenomenal season, that game marked his 200th appearance for the Whitecaps, joining Jordan Harvey for the second most in the MLS era. It was cut short, the recovery started, and we hope to see Ranko back on the pitch soon. So I wanted to catch up with him over in Spain just to see what the past few months has been like for him, how his recovery is going, and when we might see him on the pitch in a blue and white jersey once again. So go stick the kettle on, grab another biscuit of choice, and sit back and enjoy our chat with Ranko Veselinovic. So, Ranko, thanks for coming back onto the show. How is Spain for you right now? I know the weather's not been great. Ralph's been complaining constantly, I've heard, and when I spoke to him, he was complaining. But how's it been for you?
It's been good, honestly. Like for me, because I'm still recovering from injury, it's just been focused on my rehabilitation. You know, training's been good. I've been doing a lot of stuff, already some parts with the team. So I'm really happy. Except the weather, everything went fine.
Are you back playing darts with Tristan?
Actually, we have a new pair, me and Sebastian, Sean Lau, against Thomas and Isaac.
Oh, Thomas plays darts. Wow.
Yeah, he's pretty good.
He's good at everything, isn't he?
It looks like it.
I know. I wish I could be like that. I mean, it's been almost 7 months now since you tore your ACL down in San Diego. I mean, how are you feeling? How's the recovery going?
Well, yesterday was 6 months from the surgery, so it's been good. Like I always said, the toughest part was in the beginning, like first month, when I had trouble like walking and doing stuff. But right now it's just all there it needs to be here is patience, you know, not rushing things and trying to do all physical things to be in shape when I'm back completely with the team, which is I hope it's gonna be soon. But this part is always for me. Physical is harder, you know, like I do more stuff on the field, but it's mental, it's way easier. Like when you're with the team, when you do like warm up, passing drills, technical drills, and everything with the team, it's just on the mental side easier when you feel that the comeback is closer.
Yeah, I was reading about ACLs last night because I couldn't remember like what timelines were. So it said usually 8 to 12 months, but soccer, it's tougher and it's longer to get back because you're you're using it in different ways, and it's more exertions. Are you hoping, like we won't hold you to this, obviously, but are you hoping to be on the pitch before the World Cup?
Yeah, don't hold me for it, but I hope it will be. So far, the rehab's been going well. As I said, I had really tough training sessions already, doing all kinds, changing direction, sprinting, cutting, and everything. Only I still didn't do like contact sport, with the players. But we'll see. It just takes time, and as I think there's no like every individual is different. Like it can take 12 months. It's just I have a good things about my surgeon. I think he's done a good job. He said he's done a good job. So that's important that that graft did heal. So it's just I'm not gonna rush. But so far I'm positive, and I think it's been pretty good, and I think I can be before World Cup.
When the injury happened, like, did you know right away it was a bad one? Because you looked very distressed after it. So I think that was the sign that you did. But we've seen it before. Like, Tristan thought his was maybe worse than it was. We all thought Bilal's was maybe worse than it was. But like, did you know right away? Yeah, this is not right.
Yeah, I felt something happened, but I didn't think it would be the worst case.
Right.
Even after in the locker room, we had like a surgeon of San Diego's team or whoever was there on the stadium. I don't know. He's not from our team. He checked and it didn't swallow. Usually it swallow immediately, but mine wasn't. It looked normal. Like I had pain, but it wasn't that loose. So they said it's probably nothing. But 3 days after we found out it's ACL. So it's just weird how it happened. But I knew like. Usually they say you hear the pop. I didn't hear the pop, but I knew that it was really painful. I knew something happened.
I mean, it's a horrible pitch there, just in general. But yeah, I mean, it did look bad at the time. And you're somebody, I was looking on Transfer Market into your injury history, and you've only actually got one other injury listed, which was a metatarsal before you even came to the Whitecaps. Have you been really fortunate just with not having injuries over the years?
Yeah, I always say like, okay, this happened now, but I always said thank God nothing happened. Like since I came to Whitecaps, I missed maybe a few games only, and it's been pretty good. So if it has to happen, it has to happen. It's just how it goes. But I just wanna focus now on doing good recovery, and keeping my body ready that when I come back, I don't feel something else, like muscle problems or anything like that. So I think that this part, and I've been really focused on maintaining my health and my body in a good shape. So when I'm back, I don't feel any other consequences.
I don't think any player is really going to go through their career either without something happening. It's kind of that high impact. And I know you got to go back to Serbia for part of your time as in recovery and recuperating. Did that help kind of being in really familiar surroundings, family around you, loved ones around you?
It helped, yeah. I think it helped a lot, especially when it happened. I was mentally a little bit down, and it's hard in that first part when you're there in the facility and the guys are preparing for the game. So it really helped me to after surgery go away for like 2 months. I was in Serbia, and my family also helped me and my wife in those first stages when I couldn't move like really good in the first 2 weeks. So yeah, I think it's a good thing to get away in these kind of injuries, like when you are for a long period out, just to not think that much about football, about your teammates, or about what's happening on the field. Just focus on getting day by day your stuff, and get through that first part, which is I think is the hardest.
If we look back at last year, like from the playing side of it, you were having such a great year as well. The team obviously had its best year ever. What was it like being part of that? Like you and Tristan, the defensive partnership you had was so good. Tristan obviously got Defender of the Year. I think if you'd gone the full season, you were in that conversation as well. From the games that you played and how well the team did up to July with you, how do you look back on last year?
Honestly, I look positive because, as you said, it was an amazing year. We were like from the first second game we were like top three in the West, top three in the league. So we were always constantly good. We had only maybe a few games where we lost like with a 2-3 goals difference because we had a lot of team changes, a lot of injuries, a lot of guys going international duties. So, but overall, we find a way through all of that, and also we had a Champions Cup run to the final. It finished how it finished, but looking all the journey, I think it was amazing. Like also playing those amazing games, even first game in Costa Rica, and then those games against Mexican teams, and then of course against Miami. It was amazing journey, and even this injury happened. I always say like 2025. I look it in a positive way because it really happened a lot of good things, and we played nice football. I mean, all season long, and the season was amazing. So it's just it happened. It's also bad what it happened at the end in the MLS Cup final. It could have been like the best season. Like it is already the best season ever, but it could have finished with a bang. But okay, now we have also some things where we need to push, where we need to upgrade from last season and be even better.
I mean, it came full circle for you. Like the injury happened in San Diego, and then in Western Conference Championship, you got to be down there celebrating with the team. Did that make things feel a little bit better? At least lifting the trophy, the place where you had the injury.
Well, that was a weird a few days for me, honestly, when we went for the conference champion final. Like just going to that place again, like even before the game, I was walking on the field and then went to the spot where it happened. So it was all mixed emotions. But we played amazing game and we had like a lot of causes for celebration that night. So it evened out.
That's true. The defense last year, what made it so good? What just clicked? I mean, it's been good for a few years. Like Vanny had you well organized. I hate zonal marking that I know Vanny loved, but like what made it so special last year? Everyone that came in seemed to do so well in how Jesper had you set up.
Well, I think that like we were well, as you said, last few years, we were good structured, we were well organized. We knew how to defend in that lower mid zone. We knew how to spend the game in that part, but when Jasper came, I think we just switched in our mentalities, going on a front foot more, like attacking, pressing higher, going even in such situations man to man when you have to go man to man, higher in the press, risking more, and also gave us a lot of rewards. We took a lot of balls in the opponent's half. We made other team more. They doubted much more themselves, and we could have the ball more. And it's just like it's a cycle that uh, it's just one thing goes to another. And I think that's the main reason, like that we went to high press to go aggressive from the start, not allowing opponent any space to put their own game. Especially at home where we were amazing. So I think that's it. Just be aggressive in the opponent's goal kicks and winning the balls high.
What was your own favorite game from last year that you played in? It's like, was it one of the Champions Cup games? Was it like Miami in Miami, Miami at home? What game, when you look back on last year, is the one that you still get goosebumps about?
Well, there's two games actually. That one against Pumas when we scored that last second equalizer to go to the semifinal, and those games against Miami, especially the one at home. I think it's something that will always be stuck in our heads. We'll always have that memory to cherish because it was just for those kind of games you live. Like you start playing football for those kind of games when the stadium is full, when when the team is good. We won that game. Like I think I would say pretty easy. We controlled everything. We were really good. We were really strong. Also in Miami, a little bit first half. They were more sharper, but then we just found a way and we didn't panic. and it's just all that matchup against Miami it was something special last year.
Going into this year, what do you feel the team needs to be better at to turn those like final losses into victories and to keep doing how well you did? Because obviously you've got a target on your back now. Everyone's going to be looking at you as the best team in the West and wanting to knock you off. But what do the Whitecaps themselves need to do now to be better and to go up a level?
I think just pretty much what we did last year, not allowing us, and I think Jasper and staff did a really good job. They always felt a moment when we had a little bit, when we ran out of gas or we become a little bit sloppy in some moments in the games. They recognize it, and in the following week they addressed it and put us back on track. So I think they're really good in that, like not allowing us to relax at any moment. So we just need to go game to game with that mindset that we are the now hunted, as you said. So yeah, it can be harder, but it can also help us. Now, especially when we play at home, we need to take that energy from the crowd, from the opponent when they think, these guys, they were the champions in the West. So we need to take opportunity, take advantage of that, and just in those final games, in those most decisive moments when any moment can decide, we need to be a little bit more clinical, a little bit more smart, and not know how to manage the game. That's what I would say. Especially, that was my opinion in this MLS Cup final. We had everything. We just the game pulled us a little bit, and a few moments happened, and we lost.
This is going to be your 7th year in the city of Vancouver. Does it feel home to you now? I know it's never going to replace Serbia in your heart, but like, does Vancouver feel your home now?
It does. Like obviously, Serbia is where my family is, and then where is home. But yeah, I'm way more looking forward back to Vancouver now than 4 years ago, for example. But yeah, I really appreciate the city, what gave me, and I like going back there. And I said, I don't think there's not one city in MLS West club that I would love to live more than in Vancouver, because it's I really like the city. Even they complain about the weather. I like the weather in Vancouver. I think it's been amazing, especially last year. So
if you could see out the window behind me, you would not be enjoying the weather today. It's very Marbella-esque, but not in a good way.
It happened, but it's just I like it every year more and more.
So World Cup year. My complex manager, I've mentioned in other interviews to you, is Serbian and a Red Star Belgrade fan, and he's absolutely raging that Serbia has not got to the World Cup. What happened?
Yeah, our national team had really bad things, like atmosphere wasn't good within the association. A lot of things happened in our. I would need like 30 minutes to explain all of it. But it's just we didn't play good from the start of qualification, and then we knew we were in the group in England. They were gonna be first. They won every game, and then for that second spot that was going to the playoffs, we just lost the games that we shouldn't be losing, and it just happened how it happened. And now we have to look it from the home and not be in it.
You're still young. Do you still harbour hopes that you can make the breakthrough and get into the team?
Yeah, why not? Like, I always hope like that, especially now MLS is more and more better league every year. It's always in Serbia they have doubts about MLS, and that's I think the main thing. But for me, I never start believing, and I think that maybe, who knows, in 2 years in the Euros, I can be there.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Good luck with your recovery, and we'll see you back in wet Vancouver soon, I'm sure.
We'll see you all soon. Game starts.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Cheers, Ranko. So great to hear from Ranko there. Hopefully we can see him back on the pitch sooner rather than later. Hopefully before the World Cup break, because the way that him and Blackman had linked up last year was absolutely fantastic. I talked about it was a pivotal injury, and it was in two ways. One, in that it weakened that backline, but then with the other injuries that happened, it opened the door for Ralph Priso to make that switch to centre-back. And we all saw how well that worked out for Ralph and for the club as well. But there's no doubting that Ranko's presence is key to the success of this team on the defensive side. He makes Tristan better, Tristan makes him better, and he's one of those players that in his time at the Whitecaps, we've seen him get better upon better season after season. And he was really flying in 2025 before that injury hit. And it is important not to rush him back because you don't want any setbacks. You don't want to bring him back too early. Then he breaks down and then he's out for another longer spell. We've got the centre-back cover. You want to make sure that he's good to go. I think it's positive hearing about the work that he's doing on the pitch, not in any contact stuff yet in the training, so that's understandable, but sounding good, and can't wait to see him back on the pitch for the Whitecaps. And if he has another season and continues improving the way he is, I genuinely could see him breaking into the Serbian national team as well. More eyes are certainly on MLS just now in general, and maybe some players that weren't necessarily on the international spotlight for their countries before might have more attention and more eyeballs on them now. That is the Messi effect, the Muller effect, the Son effect. These big players coming to the league does that. But we also know what a great partnership him and Tristan have off the pitch as well. They're good friends, they're very close. So it was nice to hear that his new darts partner is Basti Schonlow. So they're obviously getting that kind of chemistry as well for off the pitch for whenever they might be playing together. I thought it was also interesting hearing him just talking about the emotions he had going back down to San Diego for that Western Conference final. One thing the Whitecaps have done so well in recent years, and we've talked a lot about it on the show, is they really look after their players. The injured ones get the best attention. They get to go home, spend time with their families in Serbia. In Ranko's case, Whitecaps flew Ranko in for the Canadian Championship final so that he could be part of that. He was on the stage lifting the Western Conference trophy down in San Diego. He was in Fort Lauderdale for the MLS Cup final as well. And just the next step for him now is to get up to full fitness, get back on the pitch and see him back in full flow. And I cannot wait for that. He's certainly fast become one of my favourite Whitecaps players in the last couple of years. So in my prep for the chat with Ranko there, listen back to some of the chats we'd had with him on the show before. I wasn't sure if I had asked him kind of about his background in Serbia, as when he got his love of football coming through playing it there. And it turns out I did in our very first interview all the way back in 2020. That interview had been done by telephone, and obviously it was during COVID and stuff. So I realised that at that time, first chat with him, getting used to my accent, I hadn't asked him all of our usual food-related questions that I ask the new players on the team over the years. So let's remedy that now with the first of those as we find out, does Ranko Veselinovic fancy a chocolate digestive?
Anyone fancy a chocolate digestive, even though it's unsuggested? Anyone fancy a chocolate digestive?
If you're sitting at home and it's morning, early afternoon, and you want to have a hot drink, do you go for a coffee? Do you go for a tea?
Coffee.
And what kind of, are you just a black coffee, a cappuccino, a latte kind of guy?
Just double espresso with a splash of milk.
That's exactly what I'm drinking just now. Do you have a sweet tooth? Do you like to have a sweet treat with your coffee?
Yeah, Yeah, with coffee, yes, but something really little, just a little, maybe like some cookie, small cookie or something like that. I don't have to, but I like to.
Yes, you're too healthy to have all the crap that I have.
Anyone fancy a chocolate digestive? Anyone fancy a chocolate digestive? Anyone fancy a chocolate digestive, even though it sounds suggestive? Anyone fancy a chocolate digestive?
He went with cookies, I'll take that. Not really sure if chocolate digestives did make it over to Serbia. If you've anyone listening from Serbia, let us know. But good to finally put that all-important question to Ranko. So I hope you enjoyed our chat with Ranko there. That is it for the Whitecaps talk for this episode. With one more part to go though, as we turn our attention to the tournament that the Whitecaps will be kicking off in just over a week, the CONCACAF Champions Cup. Vancouver FC were in action in that on Wednesday night in Langley, taking on the team that beat the Whitecaps in last year's final in June, and we'll be back talking about that and bringing you our latest instalment in our Canadian Soccer A to Z after this episode's song from the C86 cassette.
Hi, I'm Martin Nash, and you're listening to the AFTN Soccer Show.
Have the grace to spare my feelings. Now you know how to leave me reeling. You don't have to let it out or spread the word about, because we're both the other spout. If you don't stir your teeth in my room, the law's against me and my conscience is too. But there ought to be a law against you. My defense, you tie me up. Oh, what's gonna be when you grow up? Call your bluff, but you don't know when enough is enough. If you only knew how I'd love to take it further, that I've often felt like killing you, but that doesn't make me guilty of murder. The law's against me and my conscience is too, but there ought to be a law against you. My defense, you tied me up. Oh, what's gonna be when you grow up?
Welcome back to the AFTN Soccer Show on CITR Radio 101.9 FM. And kicking off this part is this episode's song from Enemy's iconic C86 cassette. If you've been with us the last few weeks, you'll know that all year we are going to be paying tribute to a very influential release 40 years ago in May 1986, when the new Musical Express magazine over in the UK released their iconic C86 cassette, a 22-track mail order cassette, often described as being the birth of indie. And it's a release that had a big impact in my life musically as well. I'd first got into music in the late 70s, got into punk, got into new wave, Adam and the Ants, two-tone, that kind of stuff. Then the releases that kind of followed that, 83, 84, 85, starting to not fall out of love with music, but not being grabbed by the music that was in the charts, finding it more difficult to find sort of more alternative stuff at that time. Because remember, no internet back in the day, just relying on shows like John Peel on Radio 1, Colin Somerville on 4th FM. But then along came C86, discovered so many wonderful bands on that tape, and it's definitely one of my favourite genres of music. So this week we're up to track 6 on the cassette, a band from Birmingham, England, Mighty Mighty. That was their song Law, which also ended up being on a B-side for their 1987 single One Way, which was their 5th single release overall. Now, the band were active from 1983 to 1988, then had a long hiatus, came back in 2009, and they're still going strong to this day. Very kind of Smiths feel, I think, to a lot of their songs, Morrissey-esque vocals. They released 6 singles from 1986 to 1988, one full album in that period as well, 1988's Sharks. There was some other compilations and unreleased track releases in later years. They then released a lost album, the Betamax tapes, in 2012, 25 years after it had been recorded, and then a third and so far final album from the band, Misheard Love Songs, back in 2019. So I hope you enjoyed that one. We'll be back with track 7 from the cassette in the next episode of this show. But we're going to get back to the football chat now, back to AFTN's Canadian Soccer A to Z, celebrating the best of Canadian soccer in this historic World Cup year, and we're up to the letter F. And I get to go first this week. And I'm going for the powerhouse team in the CPL, Forge FC.
Excellent choice.
There's only one F in Forge, I've heard you say on more than one occasion. That should be the name of a podcast for them if it's not already.
It should.
Maybe that's what we'll do if the Whitecaps move away. We'll just become Forge supporters.
Well,
they love working with us and giving us interviews and stuff. So
yeah, they're really good.
F's a tough one. There was a couple that I had in mind, and I won't say because I don't know what your F's going to be yet. But I went with Forge, and then depending on what you say, I've got an honourable mention or two. But I mean, Forge are the standout club of the Canadian Premier League from the get-go. 4 CPL championships, 2019, 2020, 2022, 2023. 3 regular season titles as well, 21, 24, 25. Every single season, they have lifted silverware. They've made firsts. They've been the first team in the league, really, with the ownership group being big driving force off the CPL in general. They won the first championship, as we talked about. They represented the CPL for the first time on the international stage in what was the CONCACAF League. They've now taken their first point, the first point of a CPL club against a Mexican powerhouse.
Yeah.
And they drew 0-0 with Tigres on Tuesday night in CONCACAF Champions Cup action. More on that tournament in this part as well. And they've really been the standout club. Their development of players, obviously the ties with Sigma FC, Bobby Smirniotis, one of the best Canadian coaches that the country's produced for years. Everything about the team is what other CPL teams to look towards. I know some folk do say, Zach, and we've talked about it in the show, did they have that unfair advantage, much like Cavalry had, by having the Sigma connection? Well, this is the way forward for clubs now. Like, develop your academies. Any new clubs that's coming into the CPL, hopefully will maybe come out of having academies, of having League One teams as well. Forge have done so much right. And I know we half joke, that, yeah, we hate Forge, we like to see them lose. It's because you do always want to see the best teams lose. You like to see the underdogs or the unfancied ones coming through. But the players that they've had, the players that they've developed, the success that they've had, that is basically the future template for Canadian clubs. And even though they're a new club, they've only been in existence since the 2019 season on the pitch. That is my F for the Canadian Soccer A to Z. What about yours?
It's a great list. Great list. Yeah, Forge definitely was one I contemplated, but I also thought you might go with it as you were going first. So I'll go with a player, and that is the mighty Craig Forrest.
Good
He's a
choice. That was one of my notable mentions if you hadn't gone for him.
yeah, obviously he's a BC boys from Coquitlam, and I think he was 16 when he made the trek over to become a tractor boy. Which is, the biggest part of his professional club career was at Ipswich Town. Yeah, he was there for like 12, 13 years. Had some loan spells, of course, Colchester United, and maybe more famously at Chelsea. Only like I think 2 or 3 matches for Chelsea while he was on loan, but I was still there. And then ended his club playing career for West Ham United.
See, that's how, when I think of Craig Forrest, I think of West Ham because I am a West Ham fan. More a lapsed one now, I've got to say, but like I remember him playing for West Ham.
Yeah. And then 56 caps for Canada. The most significant, of course, is helping Canada lift the CONCACAF Gold Cup in 2020, where he was the keeper of the tournament, the most valuable player in the tournament, made, I think, was it multiple penalty saves? But yeah, he was just huge for them. Like without him, they would not have won that tournament. And that's, of course, the only, other than like a 1930 something, whatever, gold medal when there was 3 teams or something. It's the only actual silverware for the Canadian men's national team. And obviously he went into the punditry right after, doing stuff on Sportsnet. And now he continues to be involved in he's become a fellow podcaster, of course, and stuff. And then he's had some different roles and played had some different opportunities as a former player. He's kind of a legend of the game of Canada. But I'm trying to think. He played, I think, in that Canada-Germany game, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was the first time I saw him play.
When you look at the accolades he won at that Gold Cup, and that was before I was watching like Canada, obviously, and Gold Cup games. So I have only read about it in the future. But I mean, to be like the whole MVP and the best goalkeeper and make the best 11 and just the best player in general for a goalkeeper, that's quite unusual because they usually give it to the forwards.
Yeah, but he backstopped Canada to that thing. Like I said, if he's not there, I don't think there's a chance. I mean,
I've
Canada
always
also
enjoyed Craig as well with his punditry and broadcasting work.
He's very great. Great. The few times I've connected with him, or maybe it's only once I've connected with him in person. There was a story I won't tell now. I think I've told you before. But anyways, always been good in person, and even I've had some connection with him on social media as well, just like with DMs and stuff about questions about things and whatever. And yeah, he's always been really, really, really good.
Yeah, we've chatted at BC Place in the past when he was there, like doing the broadcast. We should get him on the show. Actually, we've never had him on the show.
Mm-hmm. That would be great.
That'd be a good chat. I'll work on getting that sorted out. That's a very strong F.
Yeah.
What about any notable mentions?
This is going to be a weird one. I'm sure there's like a ton of others, and people listening to this are probably like, I can't believe you didn't say this person or that thing or whatever.
I find this a little hard, this letter, I've got to say.
No, one of the players that came to mind, Michael, and I can't remember if we've talked about too many of Canadian women's players along the way, but and she didn't play a ton. She didn't play a ton for Canada. Well, she definitely didn't score a ton for Canada. But is Martina Franco? She was born to Czech, like I think figure skating like medalist parents, and born in the States, but became Canadian and played for the Whitecaps. And I think how many games? 53 games, scored 31 goals for the Whitecaps. That's Martina Franco. I don't know if you got to see her play in your time. I'm sure, yeah, she was here. Oh, no. Yeah, she was only here 1 year in 2010 when you were around. But before you got here is when she was lethal. I remember watching her play at Swangard a bunch back in the day. I know
the name. I was just checking to see if we'd spoken to her on the show, but we haven't.
I don't know that we have. But she was just very physically strong. She was under 6 feet, but very physically strong. And I just remember being like a clinical finisher kind of back in the day in that kind of WSL era Whitecaps where they won in 2006 and I can't remember, that was 2006 and one other year. 2004, 2006, that's when they won. And she was a key part to those victories. And yeah, just someone I remember. And when I thought of F, for some reason, the name Franco came to mind.
Well, funnily enough, my notable mention as well is a Canadian women's national team player for F as well, Jessie Fleming.
Oh, yeah.
Current captain of the national team, I think, isn't she?
She's
ranked 7th in appearances, joint 7th with Ashley Lawrence, 151, and 10th in the scoring charts with 20 goals as well. And like, she's had such a solid career.
Yeah, she's quality.
Played with Chelsea as well and Portland Thorns, and still just 27. So there's still a lot of her career to go.
I will say with her, I'm surprised at how things have played out for her so far. She's still at Portland, right? Or did she move on? Did she move on from Portland?
No, she's still there.
I was a little disappointed when she came. I think it was from Chelsea to Portland Thorns, that she wasn't more impactful. She wasn't getting like even the playing time I thought she would, and stuff. But yeah, she is such an intelligent, creative player that is so important to the women's national team.
So that's our Fs. We'll move on to G, obviously, in the next episode. Let us know if you have any Fs that you feel we missed out on. Of course, I think I can put him in every single letter. There's F in Tim Ford.
Only one F.
One F in False Creek. That could be another connection as well.
You had to take it there.
Yes, always will. But yeah, let's see what G throws up. I go second next week. I've got 2 good Gs. So if you go for one, I've got another.
I have one that's meaningful for me, but I got to think of some betters.
And remember, it doesn't have to be a player or a team. It could be a moment or a tournament or a league or just something that you can associate with that letter.
Yeah.
Let's move on now to the tournament that I talked about there when I was covering Forge, and we'll round off the football chat with a little bit of talk about Vancouver FC in action, competitive action, for the first time on Wednesday evening out in Langley. We were both there, taking the game in as they made history in their first ever CONCACAF Champions Cup game. There was a lot of history made on the night, crowd-wise. First game, first VAR that we got to see in Langley as well. Now, well, we won't break down the whole game. I covered some of it in the extra podcast as well, which if you haven't listened to that or you're not a subscriber, full post-game audio from 5 of the Vancouver FC players and also from Martin Nash as well. And in the end, 3-0 defeat for VFC to defending CONCACAF Cup champions Cruz Azul, the team that destroyed the Whitecaps down in Mexico City back in June.
Oh, the Whitecaps played them?
Blocked it from my memory. Someone said that might be the case. I'm not too sure. But the second leg is down in Mexico on Thursday, but not in Mexico City.
In Puebla,
a place I just know from my 1986
World
Panini sticker album.
Yeah. That's the stadium I think they're playing. Yeah, that is the stadium they're playing in.
So that's a nice historic stadium as well for it. And it's going to be tough down there. I think, all things considered, the disparity between the teams, the quality, the wages, the leagues that they play in, the fact that it's a team that's in mid-season taking on a team that first game of the year and they're still trying to put the squad together, I've got to say Vancouver FC acquitted themselves very well on the night. Yeah, it was a 3-goal defeat. Yes, Cruz Azul dominated possession, they dominated the shot count, but VFC had a couple of chances, had 1, maybe 2 opportunities in the first half, 2 or 3 in the second half, and very unlucky not to find themselves on the score sheet at the end of the day. But a lot for them to be proud of from this one, Zach.
Michael, it's nice to hear you say such nice things. Vancouver.
Well, there'll be some not nice things that I'll get to as
I
we
know,
go through this.
No, yeah. The discrepancy is, if you go by Transfermarkt, the discrepancy is over 70 million euros that make up the value of the Cruz Azul squad, and less than 2 million make up the current Vancouver FC squad. But I agree with you. It didn't feel like a 3-0 game, and part of that's because of the occasion and the history for the club, and then the fact that it was the second time that there's been a sellout at the stadium. It's a little different. Yeah, the numbers. The first sellout was 6,177. This was 6,038. So whatever, close enough, I guess.
So the second highest attendance ever.
Yeah, but no. The atmosphere around it, the time of year, even like the fact that the weather, it was chilly, but it was at least it didn't.
The fog came down at the end of the night, and I wish it had been down more during the game. It would have just been wonderful.
That was kind of crazy.
That was really cool.
Some of the pictures are wonderful.
I love football under the lights in general, but a midweek cup tie and an international competition as well, it doesn't get much better than that for me.
Yeah, it was really special, and I mean, Cruz Azul, dominated the overall play, as you said, and this is what I'm going to say is meant no way to take away from any of that, but the chances that Vancouver FC created, the moments that they created, I think there's 4 key ones, and I think one of them could have gone in. First half, the only one is Polisi's header at the near post. From, I can't remember if it was a corner or a cross or whatever.
It was a free kick.
Free kick, yeah, it was a free kick. That's right. It was a free kick taken by Toomey, one of the new players, to Polisi, one of the new players. And when that happened, I remember I think he even said to you, like, oh, like, wow, okay, we had an actual respectable chance.
Yeah.
Early in this game, which I didn't see coming. I think it was like the 7th minute or something.
Yeah. Polisi met it well. Oh, yeah. Before that, we should also talk about the first booking of the game came 87 seconds in. Another former Whitecap, MLS player as well, signed a homegrown deal, Damiano Pichil, who told us afterwards he slipped. Yeah. I just thought he was out to make a statement early on, like, you're not bossing us about. He went right through the guy.
More specifically, he said to us, Michael, I slipped. I didn't mean to kill it.
Yes.
Now, granted, I think the guy he tackled was actually number 8, who is Pallavicino, sorry, who went on to score the best goal of the game, which was the third. No, that was pretty hilarious. The other chances for VFC in the second half, they win the ball back kind of near half, and they're able to spring Ba down the left side, and he goes 1-on-1 with I want to say it was the captain Lira, and he turns him to the inside, and he has the shot open to him. And unfortunately, he's only able to put it into the side netting. He isn't able to get it more straight and over the keeper's head or more towards the back post.
And Ba had been so quiet in the first half, because I was saying to you, he's that's not the Ba that we're used to. It's not the Ba that we saw against the Whitecaps in the Can Champ final either. Second half, though, whatever was said at halftime or whatever adjustment they made, that was the Ba that we know and love. Yeah,
and it was a moment of like, wow, okay, like this, maybe there's a possibility here. And then a little bit later, there was, I can't remember what the order of events now. Was the penalty the last? I think the penalty was the last. Yeah, penalty
was the last of the 3 big ones.
Then there was
it's a crazy 5 to 10-ish minute spell
in the 70s,
BFC were really in the ascendancy.
So Nash made a triple sub. He brought on Mosquita, he brought on Dave Norman, and he brought on your boy Kean Proctor. And they all played massive roles. So Mosquita had a free kick to the back post or he had a free kick in, and it ended up at a chance near the back post where Ba got stopped right in front of the keeper. Like he got his foot on and the keeper was right there. And then the ball fell to, I think after that, there was another chance where the ball kind of comes to Proctor and he just reacts with his weaker foot, his right foot, and it kind of just goes wide. And then there's what is probably the moment of the night for most Vancouver fans is the Mosquita free kick. The first one was from the left side. This other one's from the right side. He finds Matteo Capani at the back post, who does the right thing and heads it back across, not even across goal, more back towards the penalty spot, where David Norman has an incredible bicycle attempt. He gets great contact. The technique is great. It's going back towards kind of the direction the keeper has come from. The keeper's at full strength and knocks it by the post.
Good save, but what
It
a
was
connection.
it was by the best save of the night by far by either keeper, even though Cal made a really good save in the first half. It was just like, had that gone in again, it would have just been like Boss' goal in the Voyageurs Cup final. It would have just been that thing that like elevated the night for Vancouver fans.
Like it was a special night, but just one goal. Like I mean, a draw or a win, obviously, but it's like that seemed highly unlikely. But a goal, that's just what you want.
No, and I do want to say, I think it said it in talking to him after, like David Norman came in on fire. Like he just, I feel like he just didn't. I feel like he ran so much in the 20 minutes he was on the pitch. Like he was always, he set a foot wrong once, maybe twice, but he was just go.
It's the competition for places now. You've got to show Martin Nash that you deserve this. Like Mosqueda, what is Mosqueda's role going to be? Is he going to be more off the bench this year?
No, I don't. I think this was more about about this game. I think Mosqueda's going to play a big role. Dave Norman, on the other hand, I think this year is going to be that this is more likely to be his role. Not to say that he'll never start or anything like that, but I can see in the course of the season as a whole that this is more his role to come in and play either a role to kind of turn things up for them or to close out a game, to see things out. We saw last year he's got goals in him, whether it's headers or set plays or free kicks or penalties or whatever. He's got goals in him, and it almost came to fruition there. And again, it would have been so incredibly special. And
also a guy that we've known for so long as well. I know his dad, and know his whole family.
Well, I don't know if you've seen his wife is expecting.
Yeah, we talked about that on
and she put on the next day when she put the clip up or whatever that night or the next day, she was just like, little baby Norman is doing bicycle kicks inside of me, just like daddy or something like that. It was really, really.
I should maybe don't try that too often, or that might be the only one we end up having. Might do yourself an injury.
But it was special, and even though it didn't find the back of the net, I think it'll still be the moment that most VFC fans kind of look back on from that game. It almost would have been the second, because Norman wins the ball in midfield a moment or two later and allows Polisi to run onto it, and Polisi made from my recollection, his best foray forward, and he goes in, he lays off to Ba, and Ba gets taken down, and the penalty's called, and then Vancouver FC fans have been crying out, and I've on this podcast for CPL matches have been crying out for VAR to be a part of the experience at Willoughby to help set things right. And I want to say this. One, I respect the call on the field by the referee. The one thing I would say about the VAR call, I understand why it's overturned. But what I would say is, from the angles we've seen, even though there is contact with the ball, I still think there's contact with Ba. And for me, we
talked about this before with penalties.
Yeah, and I would just say that based on the angles you can see this from, that it is not clear and obvious that it's not a foul, and therefore the referee should not be asked to look at it and overturn it, because it's not objectively clear and obviously and 100% not a penalty. Now, those who might disagree with me or say, hey, you have a soft spot for Vancouver FC, you'd rather see them score or them win or them do well, that's fine. That's just how after watching it a whole bunch of times after, that's kind of the place. In the moment, I thought, okay, the refs.
I mean, I looked at, like, from sitting watching it, we're like, clear penalty.
But even when the VAR went against us, I thought, okay, because we weren't looking at VAR on any screen. We weren't looking at the replays.
Yeah, there was no replays in the stadium.
Yeah. So, I don't know exactly why that was. But anyways, it wasn't until later, even the next day, I think, okay, I was like, I've seen this enough times where I don't think it's clear and obvious. And I don't think the right decision was made. But that's what happens when you have VAR. And that's part of the human element where the fourth official, the VAR official says, hey, you should look at this. And I hope CPL moves towards that, because I think it will help them in the long term, especially if they change offside rules. But
I mean, he definitely got ball and man.
Yeah,
he cleaned Ba out.
Yeah, So I think it should have been a penalty. I think hopefully then Mosquito would have scored, and that would have again just made the night a little bit more special.
Yeah.
But kudos to Cruz Azul. Kudos to the Vancouver FC small team that they have behind the scenes that make everything happen in terms of getting ready for the game, dealing with all the CONCACAF stipulations as best they could. I know some were easier to deal with than others. But again, on getting that many people, tickets sold, people into the game, all that kind of stuff. It was a special cup night.
Yeah.
Like I just had that feeling when you were going to the stadium, even though I was there crazy early.
Yeah, it's the nights that I grew up with.
Yeah.
And the nights that I loved. Like, I support a small club, as everyone knows, and it's the cup games and the midweek ones that are the special nights. And my very first ever East Fife game was a midweek game against Hibs. I've spoken about this in 1984. And we were in the third tier. They were riding high in the top tier. We drew 0-0 on the Saturday at Easter Road, and then we won 2-0 in the replay. And that was my first ever game. I was under the lights, and it was a sold-out crowd, and it was special. And those games are special. And that game was special. And no matter what happens in the second leg now, which I think might be quite a lopsided one, but VFC's got nothing to lose. Just go out, enjoy yourself, play free, see what happens.
There are at least a dozen traveling fans going down for it too, that I'm aware of. So that it'll be an incredibly exciting and memorable occasion for them. Cruz Azul did tie Toluca today in a big match that they had, and Paradella, the number 20, one of the guys I was talking to you about, got the goal for them.
We should also note as well that it was a strong Cruz Azul team. 5 of the guys that had faced the Whitecaps started, as well as 2 guys that had come on as late subs in that game. Of course, Bogusz has now moved on to Houston, so we didn't get to see him.
I was excited to see him at Willoughby, and
I saw enough of him in June. It's totally fine.
I mean, I've seen him play before, but I want to see him again.
Yeah, so have I when he was in MLS before. But it's like no matter what happens now in the second leg, it was a special occasion, and like you never know if there'll be another one, or maybe not for many years.
Yeah,
depending on qualification criteria and various things as well. But you've had that moment, you've had that night. Capacity, in inverted commas, sold out crowd. Obviously, they could have had some more in, but it was a good atmosphere. There was a lot of. What do you think the split was? I thought it was like 2/3 Cruz Azul to 1/3 VFC, but
you didn't agree with my.
You said like
30 to 40%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some other people I talked to said they thought it was more 50-50.
It was hard to tell because it's
especially where we were, because we were in the biggest stand looking out at the others. But I asked some people in other parts of the stadium what they thought, and some said 30, some said 40, some said 50. That's why I don't know in the write up. That's why I went with
The only thing I thought that didn't go smoothly on the night was maybe the parking situation, but because it was such a big crowd, it was really tough to find parking in a place that has so much parking.
There was also some tournament going on in the arena.
Okay, right, that makes a lot of sense.
That made it even worse.
But when I got out the car, I was just walking to the stadium. I parked possibly as far away as possible in one of the car parks. But another guy had parked, and he was like, "Oh, where is the stadium?" So I was telling him it was his first time there. He was excited to get along to it, and he wasn't a Cruz Azul fan. He wasn't a VFC fan. He just wanted to get out and experience the occasion.
Nice.
And that's the thing now for VFC. How do they build in that? The bad thing is they've got 2 months until their next game out in Langley. So you've got everyone excited for the team, the great performance, getting to know the players, and now you've got a 2-month wait. So that isn't ideal. But it's been the challenge facing the club since they've started. How do you build on that on and off the pitch? Before we chime in on that, I'll play a little bit of audio from Martin Nash. I asked him about how you grow from this situation in the post-game. Here's what he had to say.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't have all the answers with that. I think, it'd be nice in season if you're getting results, it makes it easier for fans to come out. I think it was a good showcase for us playing against one of the top teams in North America, if not the top team in North America. And I thought, we fought, we put our best foot forward. We weren't as clean as we want to be, but hopefully on the pitch we did our stuff. And I know the staff and people in the club are great people that work really hard. Hopefully it's just a good display of what this club is and what this club can be, and it'd be nice to see some crowds. Hopefully we get a good season and we can just build.
We'll go over virtual room. Darnell, please go ahead.
So, of course, you're coming to Mexico City next week. What are your goals fundamentally coming into the second leg, given your point in the season and given the result in the first leg?
I mean, I think, it's obviously not going to be difficult going to altitude and all the rest of it, all that. But I think if we just come with the same attitude and, work great and work hard, it'd be nice to score a goal as well. We had a couple of chances today and almost got a penalty. I'm assuming, I didn't see the replay, so I'm assuming the ref got it right because of VAR. But, I thought if we could just be a bit cleaner going forward and create a few more chances would be nice. And, just put some pressure on them. And that would, just have a good performance.
So Martin Nash there, he doesn't have the answers. The club have struggled to find the answers. We've talked about it on the show as well, how you find the answers. But you have to hope that anyone that was there, even folk that maybe weren't VFC fans but were just going to go and see a good game of football, will have loved the fight and the spirit from the team enough to say, maybe not season tickets, maybe not even half the games, but to get out and see more games there. Because the club's needing this to grow.
Yeah.
And I still worry that they haven't done enough to get the community buy-in. Now, they'll say they've tried everything and the community's just not bought in. Even in the build-up to this, though, we were chatting about it in our media WhatsApp. The club didn't reach out to people to publicise the game, to get interviews done. Forge reached out to me to see if there was anyone I wanted to speak to ahead of the game in Tigres, and I'm on the other side of the country from them. But it's like they didn't get in touch with us, or anyone you want to speak to ahead of the game, get any interviews done. The other blogs and podcasts didn't. The Jay Janower was out for Global, so that was good. They did a piece on Callum Irvin and Martin Nash. Gemma also spoke to the same two players. That's the same two players that were then up for the pre-game as well. So you needed to mix it up. Tell some stories of the players. There's some really good stories there. David Norman, Marcello Polisi coming back to the club. Lewis Toomey, who we will speak to on the show and got a brief chat with him afterwards, coming over from New Zealand to the league. You've got a Missy that's come to the league now, and what's he going to bring? Players that's come back from the USL, the homegrowns, Damiano Pichil. There's so many good stories in the club this year. And we'll tell some of the stories over the podcast, assuming we actually get emails replied to and interviews set up that haven't been set up in the past. So that's what they need to build upon. They need to tell the stories of this team. They need to do more to try and get the community interested. And I know they go to events, and I know they do this and they do that. They've got a great opportunity to market themselves in Langley for the Canadian Championship first round matchup with Langley United. That should be a game that packs that stadium out. Yeah,
it was exciting because it's been named for the first time ever. I think I'll be going to a Voyageurs Cup match on a weekend.
Yeah, it's on the Sunday. I like it because I don't have to fight the traffic.
But it's Mother's Day, so...
Oh, is it?
Yeah, so there's some people who feel that that'll be a drawback. My perception would be that you'll get more people there on Mother's Day than you will on a Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday night.
We have a special treat for you, Mum.
Yeah.
I'm going to take you to the football.
Take you to a Langley derby?
I mean, Lusa do so much in the city, and they've got so many members, and this is such a historic moment for them in their 100th year as well. So, I mean, this is other stories that should be getting told ahead of this game.
Yeah.
And the two of them need to work together with all the local media to tell these stories. And obviously, I cover Langley when I'm doing my League One commentary and stuff, and we'll have made sure that we've picked some of their games as games of the week so that folk can get to know who the team are, because there's some great stories on that team as well, depending on who they bring back. But the first game of the year, touched on it earlier, it's like Vanny's coming with Halifax Wanderers, and you've got a 4:00 kickoff on the day that the Whitecaps play, and it's just the worst possible one. And I know VFC don't control their stadium dates.
Yeah.
Some folk might not know. But the city, the township, whatever it is, it's a community use stadium. So VFC have to fight for some dates sometimes. And they don't get all the dates that they would necessarily want. I'm sure One Soccer's had an impact into when this kickoff time is. But folk need to sit down, even an hour earlier, I think could make a bit of a difference. And it's very doable to do the double header then. Mm-hmm. I mean, it is doable. It's not as doable for us to do media post-game.
Yeah.
But you could go to 4, finish at 6, get down to BC Place for 7:30. But if you want to get media out to cover your team for your season opener, it needs to not be a 4:00 kickoff.
Yeah.
But anyway, let's hope they can build on it. And we'll talk a lot more CPL and VFC as we get closer to that season. But that's pretty much it now for the show, Zach. But we can't finish this episode without bringing you this week's Wavelength, this section of the show where we play a song all about football. And if you've been with us from the start of the year, you know that for the first half of the year, up till probably mid-July, we're going to play songs all around the World Cup, either songs that's been brought out specifically for teams or about tournaments that are taking place. And last week, we played a song for Denmark because we spoke to Jesper Sorensen. So since we had Ranko Veselinovic on the show this week, I thought let's dig a song out for Serbia. And we don't have to go too far back for this one, only going back to 2022, a song that was released in November of that year ahead of Serbia taking part in the 2022 World Cup in Qatar. It's from a Serbian DJ and rapper, Marko Gojkovic and Yoda. They hail from Belgrade, and this is their song, which I've translated into the English translation for you, as opposed to trying to butcher Serbian. This is All Is One, Serbia to Qatar.
Još jednom lopta u 16-tercu, evo prilike Mitrović, gol!
Nema sekundu, sada pokaži ko si, šta si, odakle dolaziš, sada naglasi. Sanjali jesmo, želeli jak, direktno na svetsku, ne može svako. Sad je trenutak kada se stvara, svi kao jedan, Srbija do Katara. Ponosno podigni prva 3 prsta, ruka ne krene u obliku krsta. Podigni glavu, visoko gore, pokaži kako Srbi se bore. I kad je vatra, i kad je dim, imamo mistera, imamo tim, imamo inat, imamo veru. Zastavu crveno, plavo, belu. U nebo pogledaj, Bogu pomoli se, izađi i bori se. Za boje zastave, za radost nacije, za navijače Srbije. U nebo pogledaj, Bogu pomoli se, izađi i bori se. Za boje zastave, za radost nacije, za navijače Srbije. Dragan Stojković. Dragane.
Kako bre eventualni mora da idem u Katar.
Tamo daleko, tamo u Kataru, tamo se boriš za majku Srbiju, tamo rezultat treba da napraviš, tamo je šansa i da se proslaviš. Za tribine, pesma se ori, za svoj grb
Marko Gorjkovic and Yoda there, all as one. Serbia to Qatar. And the 2022 World Cup didn't go Serbia's way. They've really struggled when they get to the major tournaments. They've done well in qualification, then they get there, and then they are just struggling to get the results, get out of the groups. This year, they really, the way that they started the campaign, should have been in the UEFA qualifying, but it just fell off the rails for them. And a big loss to Albania is what really did them in the end. So they have to regroup now for the next Euros. They will not be in North America this summer, but we'll be back with another World Cup wavelength in the next episode of this show. But that is it now for this episode, Zach. Just before we go, any final thoughts from yourself? Anything that's kind of leaped out at you this week in the world of football, or any shout-outs that you want to give?
I just want to, I guess I'll say this. I didn't say this last week. I just want to give a shout-out to, you and I talked about this, I think, but we didn't put it on the show. I just want to give a shout-out to a former sponsor of the show and friend of the show, Darnell. I got to witness more of his officiating recently, and he just did a really, really quality job. It was Vancouver FC U19s against Abbotsford United / Capilano team or whatever, in one of these cup competitions where your team can change apparently really easily. But I thought the parts of the game I got to watch, I thought he handled himself really, really well. And as a referee, I know, especially for like those kind of matches, you probably don't get told that you've done a good job very often from very many people.
No, you probably just get the referee assessors telling everything that you've done wrong.
Yeah, and referees don't get a lot of praise. But I thought, and to be clear too, Vancouver FC lost the game 2-1. But no, I thought he did a really, really good job in the game and handled the players really well. And it was, really, really good to see. I didn't get to connect with him afterwards. So yeah, shout out to Darnell for that.
It's been another long show. I won't keep us chatting for too much longer. I'll just plug the extra podcasts again. You can go on to aftn.ca to find out how you can subscribe to those. Thanks to everyone that does subscribe to those. Zach mentioned about former sponsor of the show. If anyone wants to sponsor the podcast, either for a month, 6 months, or for the year, get in touch and we would welcome you on board. We're not taking sponsors from like betting websites or crypto. We get offered those a lot, and it's not something I'm interested in having on the show. But if anyone else would like to reach out for sponsorship opportunities, or even if you want to sponsor some segments on the show, we can chat. Get in touch, AFTN Canada at hotmail.com. Who knows what the next week will bring? I'm thinking it's going to calm down in Whitecaps land a little bit. I'm hoping it's going to calm down, because that will then let us do our MLS season preview in the next show. Maybe do our round table combined with that as well. New jersey for the Whitecaps coming out on Wednesday. We'd love to hear your thoughts about that. AFTN on Blue Sky, AFTN Canada on Twitter /X. Until next time, though, as always, thanks for listening. Take care, and mon the Caps.
When you're listening on some far-flung corner of the globe to the World Service of a Saturday afternoon, crackly reception, interference, cosy, marvellous. Somehow comforting, isn't it? You know, legendary names, fathers and sons on the terraces, cheesy peas at half-time, pint for dad, mum's at home making the tea. Oh, everything's all right with the world, isn't it? Saturday afternoon is football.